All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to Atwater tonight. This is our August 5th District Advisory Board meeting. Just a few reminders, we do live stream this, that way we can get more involvement from everyone and everyone can hear what's being presented tonight. So you are on Facebook Live. It is shared throughout social media. With that, we will call this meeting to order at 6:08 p.m. And have you all, the DAB, received the agenda, reviewed it? I will entertain a motion for that.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Have a motion to approve and
Second.
second from Anicia.
Galen and Neal.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Have you all had a chance to review minutes from last meeting? All right, I'll entertain a motion from that as well.
Motion to approve the minutes.
We have a
Second.
motion to approve from Tom, second from Anicia. Any other discussion? Tadana? Y'all said it at the same time, I'll let you. Okay, Tadana, second to that. My apologies. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, we'll jump into our staff reports and start off with the fire department.
Good evening, my name is Jason Mundell, I'm the acting lieutenant, or acting captain at Fire Station 1 this evening. We're here filling in for Station 10, which is out doing some training, so kind of bear with me on the information I have. But Fire Department responded to 3 structural fires in District 1 in July. They had a fire on July 3rd on North Ash that was determined to be accidental. There's some damage to the garage, caused about $6,000 worth of damage. Another fire on July 20th on North Rushwood caused approximately $130,000 to the backside of the house and the deck. And then another fire on the 25th on South Greenwood that caused about $20,000 worth of damage to the residents. So those are only 3 major structural fires we responded to. Other than that, we responded to 24 fire alarms, 58 service alarms, 563 medical calls, for a total of 645 alarms in District 1 for the month of July. You guys have any questions or concerns with the fire department?
Any questions from the DAB? None? Any questions from the public? That was quick. Well, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right, next up, we'll have police. The bar has been set.
I know, I talk a lot. All right, Officer Larry Carlson, Wichita Police, Patrol South, Community Policing, South Bureau. I have 21 vehicles, Old Town in the Arena area. And in that area, what we've accomplished over the last couple months, we've been working on gates, closures. If you go down to Old Town at night, or if you go down to Old Town during the day, you see these railroad-looking crossing gates down there. We've used those as safety measures. We've been experimenting with cones for approximately 4 years, dragging them around, setting up stuff. What we've allowed to do with that is we allowed a safer walkway to separate vehicles and pedestrians. That has helped with our crowd control down there as well. Works out very well. The south side, between Douglas and First Street, there's gates that are in place now. We hope to get the north side ones in probably in the next month. It's a phenomenal thing. Helps, like I said, corral the crowds properly. The other thing is we had a lot of loitering going on. Parking garage is next to the Warren Theater, 300 block north of Meade. We had worked on several different things over the years, including like little speed bumps. If you ever drive in there or park there, that was to keep cars from drifting. And drifting is like what you see in the movies, the Tokyo Drift, where they spin it sideways and try to come around corners. Very dangerous. We got those speed bumps put in, I think after, and I think it was because I said, here's what I picture is gonna happen. Someone's gonna spin sideways, lose control, go through a concrete thing. At the same time, a train's gonna be coming across. They're gonna die. It's gonna be national news. Can we get some of these speed bumps in? Boom, speed bumps were in. after the speed bumps got put in place, it kind of worked for a little bit. Cars would sit on them and try to burn out on them and try to damage them. So the next best thing we had to do was loitering signs. A lot of chaos going on. There's actually a lot of people that would go to movies, felt threatened or frightened because of everybody hanging out up there. And then finally we got the loitering signs in. I think we got that pretty much corralled, so that's been really good. And then one concerning factor that did happen on 21 Beat that happened over the weekend was a 17-year-old was killed in a homicide. It was an ongoing gang-related issue. I believe it's a 17-year-old suspect that is in custody on that whole thing. My biggest thing on that is you have a 17-year-old with a gun, period, whether it's rifle, handgun, whatever it is. It pays to be a snitch. I'm gonna say that straight out. It pays to be a snitch through Crime Stoppers or whatever. 267-2111 is the number. Always utilize that Crime Stoppers. Encourage your kids to do it. It's a matter of changing face because this can almost happen anywhere. And like anytime that we're trained throughout our career, as far as involved in shooting, we have to worry about background. These guys that are out here causing these issues, they don't think about backstop. They don't think about what's going on behind. And if they're utilizing a rifle or a high-powered thing, I mean, they will travel pretty far. Innocent people will get hurt from doing that stuff. So remind your kids, remind people, it doesn't need to be a snitch through Crime Stoppers. You can do it on Facebook, I'm sure they got Twitter. 267-2111. But that's about all I'm gonna talk about right now, except for National Night Out for Wichita is next Tuesday. Please notify the city, notify the city about where your parties are at. Officers will be out, make a visit. Any questions?
On Crime Stoppers, there are some people who are concerned about that. Can you talk about what happens if you do reveal who you are? You don't get that reward, so it really is anonymous?
No, there's no revealing yourself. I mean, you get a number and you go pick it up in a bank. There's no having to reveal yourself, and I know under some circumstances, and I'm trying to think of, this thing started back in like 1980 or 80 something. I know that the tips come across, they are anonymous, they do help. If you're looking for a monetary value, if you're looking to cash in on something, then you'll be given a number. They'll never ask your identity, no matter what it is. We've had homicide cases where those tips have came through, and people are like, oh my God, I'm scared to get it. I mean, and some real serious ones, they get cash out pretty good. They make some decent money off it, and yet still they will not get their name from it. So the program cannot continue on for 40 years if there wasn't some secrecy of identifying who that person was. So you make your tip, you get your number, and if it's liable, they have a committee that will figure out like what it's worth. That doesn't mean everything's worth $1,000, but consistent information is great. And I will tell you this, over my career, we've had some of the most wanted people picked up off that stuff. Some of the tips that you kind of knew what was going on, but it gave us that extra little information to go forward with it. So it is very beneficial. And it's a secret way of getting a snitch, get paid. Easy doing. Any questions?
Any questions from the
Yes,
dad?
ma'am.
Can you give us an update on how the collaboration is going with the FBI?
I am not part of that group. And I know that they're just kind of starting to get their feet wet. I don't think they've really kicked off anything yet that I am aware of. They haven't. I do know that we have a couple other little projects going on in ourselves that will address that. But I think the FBI thing, they just kicked off on that the other day. Yes, sir.
Yes, back to the Crime Stopper. How does that work when an individual gives a tip and it is successful and that person is arrested? How does that work when that case goes to court?
It goes across as a bona fide tip. Understand how the circumstance, like if you called 911 now and you said, hey, there's this going on right now. This guy's about to rob a bank. And they're like, sir, you want to leave your name and number and stuff like that? You're like, no, not leaving my name or number. That's a tip. It's not through the Crime Stoppers, so obviously there's no monetary value behind it, but if you were to say, these guys are gonna rob a bank at this time, and that was through Crime Stoppers, and it comes about to be true, you're given a number with each report. With each credible report, then they have to sit down and figure out what was the value of it, this group is. But for that person contacting, they're just a number. They're a tip number, if that makes sense.
Well, I guess what I was getting at is, you know, if the person that gave the tip when that case goes to court, does that,
No, the
Person
person
has to-
who gave that tip does not go to court.
okay, that's what I was getting at.
The person who gives that tip a lot of times gives enough substantial information to allow the case to go forward. With that information, like say, I know the gun that was used in this is laying over here. That's a pretty good Crime Stopper case. And then if, they find the gun, they find that that information was rewarding, then they figure out the monetary value of that. And that's the committee that handles all that.
Okay.
I know all their information's available on their website at Crime Stoppers. Pretty easy, and about all places in the country use some type of Crime Stopper. Even in the schools, I think they have, some type of little Crime Stopper thing for what goes on in schools as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from Deb? Questions from the audience?
Question, if they call in and they get a number and then you have to decide whether it's a good complaint or it's a tip, how do you get back in touch with them? To let them know that they're gonna have, how do you get back in touch with them to let them know that they were going to get a reward? If you don't have any contact?
They will get, with your number, there's instructions on how to follow up with it. So, because a lot of times we'll get Crime Stopper tips of like, hey, this guy's got a very violent warrant, he's wanted on this, and we'll go check it, but if we don't make an arrest on it, we're checking on it, there's nothing to cash in, so there's updates as far as that number goes.
Any other questions? All right, thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you.
Took the bar and just kept going. Alright, I'm Officer Stark, I work up north, 470, 21st Road North, all that up there, at a Patrol North Bureau. I'll start off with a couple things that we just got done with. Convoy of Hope just finished up, over at McAdams Park. We had a huge turnout for that. A lot of kids, smiling faces walking down with backpacks. And then city camps just wrapped up, on the east side, south side, north side. We just gave out a bunch of prizes to those city camps and we cooked for them on Thursday. So that's one of the things that we just got done with. I'll get to the stats and then I'll be done. North side of the hole, up where our chunk of DAB 1 is, has been quiet, except for Larceta autos and auto thefts. Both of those are up, and I think they're up citywide, so it's nothing new. They're on the rise for the last 28 days. We've had 34, when the average is 24 from the last 7 years. So we're up about 10 or 15 auto thefts. It's weird because usually those are up in the winter when people are starting their cars, but it comes back to people leaving stuff in their cars and leaving their keys in their cars. They're leaving their cars unlocked. People are getting in them and just taking them. People are running into stores, restaurants, stuff like that real quick and leaving their stuff running. It's a no-no, so don't do that. So we gotta start doing that. As far as Larceta autos, north side has a few projects. We've been getting hit hard up in North Rock area with shoplifts and Larceta autos. We have a project getting ready to be in place. It's a plainclothes assignment with the north side CP officers that we're gonna be rolling out. You may not know it's us, but we'll be out there trying to hammer that and try to get that Larceta autos. It brings me back to See Something, Say Something. That initiative is still going on. Up north, we just had a shooting over 24th and Ellen. We didn't get a phone call about it until the morning, and we realized they had damage to the car. So that's sort of a problem. If we don't know about it, we're not gonna be able to do anything with it. In that time frame, we've lost any hope on it. So spread the word, See Something, Say Something, basically that initiative. If you see something suspicious, you know your neighborhood better than anybody, call us. Even if it turns out to be nothing, at least we went out and checked it out and we can confirm that it's nothing. If you just don't call us and assume somebody else called us, that never happens. people are not calling us. Also calling us on check shots, stuff like that, it allows us to narrow our search. A lot of times we get a check shot call and it's 1 or 2 calls. We go in the area, if we don't see anything, we're gonna clear it. But if you call and then somebody 2 blocks the other direction call, we have now centered it and they tell us the direction, we've now centered it. And just like with Crime Stoppers, you can stay anonymous, and know if a shooting did occur, they call us, we're gonna knock every door in that neighborhood anyways. So it's not gonna be like it's isolating you, we're gonna knock every door. So you don't have to talk to us, but we're gonna knock every door anyways, and then we'll go back out and do the impact and do the exact same thing. As far as homicides, ag assaults are up a little bit, the check shots, stuff like that, but are lower than average are homicides, robberies, and all your ag assaults and ag batteries, burglaries, and burglary non-residents. Those are all down, which is all a plus. Those are the ones that usually bring in the big money. So that's all I've got for north side. The National Night Out, make sure everybody's got signed up and we'll all be there. So does anybody have any questions for me up north?
No questions from the DAB, any from the public?
But
You mentioned check shots, did this, I thought I heard something a while back, like maybe a year or 2 ago about that shot spotter technology.
So it is out and it's deployed. It's 21st and Market area down there. They're working out the kinks of it still. They're trying to figure out how it works because it's new to us. So it's out there. I don't have any of the data or anything to support it, but it's out and they're trying to pull in data so we can figure out how accurate. I know it's picking up what it's supposed to, but it's got some glitches that it's had some problems with some different stuff with it, so they're trying to work all that out.
I've just heard that it's been very successful in other
Yes,
cities.
yeah,
so.
yeah. And there's so many, once one thing goes successful, then you get 1,000 market floods with different products, so then we have to try to pick a product, and we're not the best at picking products, so we have to work out the glitches. Anything else?
Interject on that shot spotter. Shot spotter is a brand name, and like places like Kansas City uses it, and they have an accuracy on that thing up to like a meter. They track that stuff. The one that we're using, I don't know what the price was, but it wasn't even close to the price of the shot spotter one, so I don't know what the actual name is, so therefore they're still trying to, and they're, probably a sister company of some sort because we do the same thing, so that's why they gotta figure out their accuracy. The accuracy on the shot spotter program itself has showed that it is accurate up to a meter. Wow. And, so that's why this company isn't, it's newer, so they don't have those statistics like everybody else has. So it'll take a little while to really figure out where they're at.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I'm James Hook. I'm Patrol East Community Policing. Patrol East is going to mirror kind of what Patrol North and Patrol South has to say on that. The thing that we're seeing kind of an increase wise as far as crime trend goes are those larceny to autos. So the people breaking into cars and stealing stuff out of them. Again, like Officer Stark said, please, please, please do not leave things like your wallets, your purses, brand new big screen television, cash, mail, credit cards, computers.
Guns.
Guns especially. And I think a lot of people that'll smile and smirk, but the truth is people are leaving this stuff in their car, and a lot of times they're leaving it in their cars overnight and then come Please, if you can, have a completely bare vehicle when you have it parked outside, because it's gonna deter the people that are walking through the streets, checking the windows, and it's literally window shopping. These criminals will walk around all night long and just look in window after window. They see something that looks like it might pay off. It takes that long to bust out the window, grab what they want, and move on. And in a lot of cases, it's not loud, it's not gonna draw a lot of attention. So if you think, well, I'll hear something happening outside, you're not going to. So if you can, remind your friends, remind your neighbors, hey, just take that stuff out. Couple things that have happened on the department recently. The integrated care team, we call ICT1, our pilot program for a mental health unit, has started this month. It started last week, was the first week up and running. What the integrated care team is it takes an officer, a social worker, and a paramedic. It partners them up, and they respond to active mental health crisis calls. So if somebody's feeling suicidal, or somebody is experiencing some kind of crisis, whether it's delusions, suffering from a mental illness, they're not sure what's going on, something along those lines, we now have the integrated care team that can respond to those calls, as well as conduct follow-up for individuals that live with mental illness that may be kind of high utilizers for 911 as a way to help try and connect them to other resources so we can reduce kind of that strain and that call load on first responder agencies who respond with them. So something you might keep in mind if you make that call, or you have friends, family, loved ones that experience any kind of mental health crisis, you can request the ICT or integrated care team if they're available. They can respond. I think right now they're Tuesday through Friday in the evening hours. I think 2 to midnight right now is what they're operating. So, but hopefully this program, once the pilot's done, we'll be able to integrate it, add a few more officers to it, and keep it going long-term. So that's probably one of the bigger announcements we've got going. For anybody who is not busy on Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday, August 7th at 4:30 in the afternoon down at the Farm and Art Market in Old Town, right there at First and Mosley, we're going to have the public unveiling of the new Clydesdale horses for our mounted unit. So we will have them out for everybody in the public to come up, say hi, pet them, kind of meet and greet, and we will finally be releasing their names to the public. So I've had a lot of people asking for the names of the new horses, and that'll finally be revealed come Wednesday. So if you guys can, please come down. We're hoping the more the merrier. So it'll be a fun event. We'll have all the horses down there for everybody to see, get to come up and pet, get to see kind of how the horses work and some of the stuff they're capable of, but it'll be a good time for everybody. And other than that, I think that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions from the DAB? Any from the public?
Little Birdie said somebody got a promotion.
Yeah, it's, I think they made 8 calls that were going around. So it's supposed to take effect in October, will be our next round. That's also when our newest recruits that are currently in our field training will, come out on their own and be full-fledged officers and not just in field training. So, I'm excited.
Well, congrats on the promotion.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the ICT one team, collaborating with the hot team for, any homeless, people that might have mental issues?
I'm not sure. I know they're gonna work together in some capacity. The way it's running right now is we've got WPD and we've also got the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office. So we're alternating weeks. So one week, the sheriff's officer will ride with the team, and the next week WPD will work with them, because we're trying to incorporate it within Sedgwick County, so they'll respond not just in Wichita, but within the surrounding areas. Obviously, with our hot team, they come in contact with a lot of individuals who live with mental illness. That's part of the homelessness problem that we see, and so they've known about this integrated care team. We've had a lot of meetings working with them on how we can incorporate each other, how we can help some of the things they do, and how some of the things they do can help the integrated care team run. So it kind of comes down to what's gonna be the main focus of the problem. If it's kind of a homelessness problem, then that's kind of the primary focus. The hot team's gonna be the one primarily working that. If it's an active crisis, something that's going on right then and there, the integrated care team will also be able to respond. And then they will be able to communicate back and forth. Because like I said, as it is right now, your homeless outreach team works mostly during the day. And then the integrated care team is gonna be primarily at night. We try to set it up so that they are working in the highest volume of crisis calls that come in. So we work with ComCare, some of the other crisis centers, to try and pinpoint when are we getting the most calls for crisis, when are we seeing a lot of that stuff happen, what days, what times, so we can have that team available and work during that time.
Whose idea was that? That's awesome.
It's kind of been an ongoing effort. So I've been working for quite a while to try and get something going, and with different models in different places. I think one of the directors for EMS actually had gone up to Colorado and they have this integrated care team model, which is similar to your co-responders, which partner officers and social workers together to respond in the field. Colorado with the integrated care team, they take it that one step further and add the paramedic into the mix. So when EMS went up there, their director saw that, really liked it, how it worked and some of the statistics. So they were able to come back and bring everybody to the table. So it's something I know the sheriff's department had been kind of throwing around. We've been talking about it with WPD. EMS wanted to get on board with it. So once everybody came to the table, we all said, hey, this is all something we wanted to work with, we wanted to work on, we've been wanting to do it, so let's make it happen. And it took a little bit of planning, but we were able to get it out there, start making it happen, and we've got the pilot program up and running. So I've heard a lot of good things just in the first week that it's open. So I'm looking forward to see what the next 4 months will bring.
And then council level, District 5 Council Member Brian Fry, former District 2 Council Member Pete Meitzner, now County Commission, kind of helped with the higher level stuff, so. But it's been really good. I'm excited about what's gonna come from it. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Very much.
I do want to add on to what Officer Hook said. I know I yelled out guns in light of the terrorism we've seen this last week. We have had more than 1,500 guns stolen out of people's vehicles over the last year and a half I've been in office that Chief Ramsey's told me about. And seriously, people are leaving them in their glove box, under their seat. There was a truck that had 3 shotguns in the back, so not covered, and people just walked up and took them. We've seen rifles stolen, so again, law-abiding citizens are not locking their guns up, and we need to stop doing that because people are really stealing these guns, and we don't know what's gonna happen when those guns are stolen. So anybody you may come in contact with who may have a gun, let them know. Take it in the house. Don't leave it in the vehicle, even if they wanna be protected outside, take that protection in the house, bring it back out with them, but keep it on their person. And don't leave it unattended in the vehicle because that is something ongoing. And I'll try to get the number for this year and bring it back, but it is disturbing. Guns are being stolen out of vehicles all the time. We'll move on to library report.
I have a quick question for you. Oh,
Right after her.
And Ethan from the library. Just a couple announcements. We are still offering our after-hours technology assistance lab at the Maya Angelou Branch Library. We can assist with job applications, resumes, printing, even internet research or any other digital needs. 6 to 9 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays over at the Maya Angelou Branch. You do not need to have a library card to come in and use the computers and get help. Coming up on Friday, August the 16th at 7 p.m., we will be having the next Candid Conversations Book Club. We will be discussing the book There by Tommy Orange, a book about 12 urban Indians in Oakland, California, who come together to celebrate the Oakland Powwow. It is a free event, but registration is required. You can register by calling the Maya Angelou Branch, 688-9580, or you can visit the library's website. There are some copies of the book available for checkout. And finally, we have a new partnership that we're working. We just started partnering with WSU Tech to offer technology classes. They will be held at the WSU Tech South Campus, 3821 East Harry. We have upcoming classes this month, Microsoft Word on Tuesday, August 27th at 8:30 in the morning, and start a resume using Google Docs on Thursday, August 29th, 1 p.m., and you can call the library to find out more and to register. And that's all I've got.
Awesome. Any questions from the DAB? Any from the public?
Is it true that the after-hours computer lab ends at the end of August?
No, the after-hours computer lab is on the calendar through the rest of this year. I can't speak for 2020, but it is on the calendar for the rest of this year.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Park and Rec.
No report.
No official report. Instead of saving it for later, very soon there will be a technology lab installed at McAdams Park. A local gentleman by the name of James Seals wanted to give back to the community, so he will be investing 20 to 30 computers into the senior center, outfitting it. He's a technology guy, so he knows all the terms I don't, but that will be up and running very soon, and it'll be an opportunity for young people to have not just a computer lab, a technology lab where they can go learn coding and do a lot of cool stuff. So that is an awesome investment. It's coming from somebody who grew up in Wichita, now lives in Florida, very successful, and he wanted to give back. So that will be at McAdams very soon. Mr. Thompson, you had a question.
Yeah, going back to guns being stolen out of vehicles, is that something that the council and the WPD could look at as far as when something like that happens? Could people leave guns in their vehicles unlocked, that they can be liable and can be fined for that? Is that something that they could look at possibly?
Yeah, we can definitely look into it. I think at this point, we need help from the state on that because there's a lot of protections at this point. But if someone's being irresponsible and leaving it in their vehicle, I think that's a conversation we can definitely have. All right. We'll move on to our public agenda. We don't have any scheduled items from folks here. Do we have any off-agenda items from the public that is not a part of our agenda already? Going once, twice. All righty, move on to new business. Public art ordinance. As they come up, I just want to remind you, when we get back to the public piece, on these items, please go up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. As we get the projector going, he'll probably step back in, but I did want to acknowledge that we had State Representative Michael Capps in the audience with us. He stepped out to take a phone call, but when he comes back in, I'll point him out to you.
Shh, close your eyes. You do not see the safety violation. Right?
Sure. I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Ty Tabing, and I'm an urban economic development consultant. I'm here with Jeff Best, who is a landscaping architect and has been serving on the design council for a number of years. We're here tonight as really kind of the culmination of some conversations that have been going on for the last couple of years. Patricia McDonald from the Art Museum, the head of the Art Museum, has convened a group to look at establishing a sustainable funding source to really enhance art and aesthetics in this city. So we've been looking at a lot of best practices from other cities, and is what we're talking about tonight is a proposed ordinance that's based on a percentage of the capital improvement program the annual capital outlays. So it's our hope that at the very earliest stages of design and project conceptualization, that an artist will be on board and really kind of play an integral role in the process of building things. So it's not kind of an add-on at the end. Sometimes you see that a sculpture might be added to a site to give it art. It's our hope that with this sustainable funding source, it brings predictability and also will allow a more integrated and cohesive project in the future. We would be joining about 350 cities in the country that already have similar art programs. Here in Kansas, there are 2 cities that have similar programs. Hutchinson and Lawrence both have Percent for Art programs, and we're looking to join them. And so I'll just share some of these slides here. Jeff is going to talk kind of the numbers side of this. I'm just giving you a little context about what we're talking about today. So what we're really looking at is really enhancing our identity as a city. This is a citywide focus that would ideally lead to greater economic development and attract tourists to our city as we really enhance our identity and make the city more of an attraction. Art has been a driver for economic development in a number of cities. Some of the more high-profile cities are Austin, Texas, and Santa Fe, New Mexico, Asheville, North Carolina, etc. So those are the kind of leads that we're hoping to follow. This is the Crown Fountain from Millennium Park in Chicago. These are a couple of projects that are already in town where art was integrated into the design. This is kind of an aspirational project from San Francisco. There's some projects in town where art has really lent itself to a much greater identity. These friezes along Kellogg I'm sure everybody has seen those. That's a nice addition. Also, this pedestrian bridge in Sims Park. There's a pipe just to the north where there wasn't an art element added, and it's a very utilitarian pipe that just goes across the river. Here you can see art was, and really utility was thought about in designing this pedestrian bridge that goes across the river. Also, these are a couple of other projects. A loft project inside the art museum, inside the airport. Of course, the big Horizontes mural that was done on a grain elevator. It's our hope that some more of those might be done in the future to really grab people's attention as they're driving by and through Wichita. Just to give you a little context, I used to live in Chicago. This being here, this doesn't come cheaply. It was budgeted at $9 million. It ended up costing $23 million. The overall park was about $375 million in cost. So what we're talking about is relatively small in nature, but that's just an example of what some of our larger cities throughout the country might be doing. These are some of the cities that have been visited. Each summer, there's a city-to-city tour where the Chamber of Commerce in town leads an initiative to go look at best practices in other cities. And these are some of the cities that have been visited. And as you can see, the range is between 1% and 2% of the capital budget each year. And this is my last slide. This is a couple of other projects that have been done. One thing to think about as you look at this is 20% of the funds each year will be used for maintenance, and that's maintenance of current works, and will be set aside for maintenance and some administration costs in the future. So with that, I will turn this over to Jeff, and we'll talk a little more about some of the numbers involved in this.
Good evening. This is actually my first time at my own dab. I live right down the street, so it's nice to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Like Ty was saying, I'm a landscape architect. I've been working here in Wichita for a number of years, and actually worked on a handful of projects that you actually see in your pamphlet. And I sit on the design council, so I get to see all of them come in. I don't know if everybody's familiar with what the design council does, but I'll kind of get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts on them. But we've really been implementing a public art plan over the last 20 years, but kind of in an ad hoc fashion. We haven't had an ordinance, we really haven't had a set funding stream. So a project will come up and the designers kind of have to scrape together what they can to kind of get things done. A lot of times we ask staff to go back and find more money to add art, which makes everybody a little uncomfortable. I don't know why, because I know you're sitting on money up there. So really the ordinance obviously creates that funding stream, but also starts codifying a system and a process that can move on and mature. It'll probably go on for several years, and it'll probably be revisited as we learn, as we go. Like Ty was saying, the other nice thing about this, it actually does establish 20% for maintenance of the existing system we have. I think they budget around $50,000 a year right now, which isn't really even close to enough for the maintenance. Oh, now to my nifty graphic. So really what we're looking at doing is pulling a percentage based on the CIP. If that's 1.5, if it's 2, I think we're still debating back and forth, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. That creates a funding stream, a pot of money. That doesn't mean that 1.5% of a project cost will go to art on that project. It just creates a funding source or a pot of money. After that's created, 80% becomes available for use for projects, 20% for maintenance. From there, we go through a process with staff and design council and finally city council to determine kind of how the monies that are available each year get spread across the projects that are up for that year. It may be that this project gets $100,000, this one gets $50,000, whatever the case may be. And it'll be capped. Obviously, we can't go over the funding that we have. Larger projects, more significant or monumental projects, say the stadium. Maybe that's a bad example, I'm not sure. The ones that come every so often that are monumental in scale, they may need extra funding because they obviously could suck this down and not allow anything left for anything else. The smaller projects in the neighborhoods, those kinds of That's what my wife does when I talk to her. Oh, you can't read any of that, sorry. This is kind of the breakout though. So city staff went back and analyzed kind of what we've been spending over the last few years. And over the last 5 years, they determined that we were right around 1.4% of the entire CIP that was going to arts and aesthetic. This came out to about $2.4 million per year. Staff is proposing actually a 1.5% based on GO, local sales tax, and transient tax. So it's not the entire CIP. Enterprise funds would not be included, special assessments not included. That actually comes down to about 1.1 million available. Our group feels that's a little shy. So, of course, we're pushing for 2%, which actually comes up to almost 1.5 million. Again, I think that's probably could be adequate if larger monumental projects had an additional funding source. I think that 1.5 per year could be spread across more standard projects pretty equitably. And with that, it's so washed out. Do you remember the keeper like this? I got the chance to actually work on this project, so it's near and dear to my heart, and I vaguely remember when it looked like that. But it did. So,
Looks better now.
any questions, or Councilman, do you have anything else to add?
No, not right now. I'm here to listen. Any questions from the dad? Wow. Any questions from the community?
I have a question actually.
Can somebody on the DAB read the recommendation off your agenda so that our, all can see the final recommendation? The following.
Recommendation the recommended action, provide feedback and suggestions to the ad hoc group as they move forward with preparing the draft ordinance for preparation or for presentation to the city council.
So feedback, suggestions?
I have a question. Where is it that you will hope that these projects extend? Is there a particular area of the city that you're focusing on, or will it be the entire city of Wichita?
Staff will typically bring us a list of projects for each year that they anticipate going into construction, or well, actually going out for RFP and then design. We usually look at those projects and assign a value or how much we think additional funding they need for arts and aesthetics. They really vary, and we try to hit all the districts. It just kind of depends on how those projects sift out year to year. Sometimes there's two in this district, sometimes there's one here. Like that. So it does vary a bit, but we try to, the intent is to kind of spread it around, if you will.
Follow-up question, if I may. So I had the opportunity to visit St. Louis, Missouri, and in a lot of their urban communities, such as the one that we're sitting in now, there's a lot of historic artifacts or figures like Dr. Martin Luther King, Jesse Owens, Thurgood Marshall. There's a lot of monumental buildings and structures that are built in these areas. Is there any intent to put anything of that nature in our communities, so that way individuals who are in this community or even touring this community can know and learn about the history that perhaps they don't learn in school?
I think that each project that comes up has a different scope and a different intent. I think there's certainly opportunities for that. I'm working on a project in Delano right now, and there's an effort to kind of express the Chisholm Trail and the history of the Chisholm Trail in Delano back in the day when you had the saloons, well, and there's other places over there, in an interesting way along that pathway. So I think there are efforts, and I think what you need to do is look at the CIP, and if there's a project that comes up that looks interesting in your district, that you think there's an opportunity, I would bring it up and get it out there.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you said that earlier that your budget was like 1.4% of the total budget, but what was the total amount of that?
About 2.4 million per year. It's about what it worked out to.
2.4 million.
And that was over the entire CIP.
Yeah.
Our funding will actually come only from 3 funding sources. The reason for that was that they could be a little more transparent with it. You can see where it's coming from a little easier.
Thank you.
Well, 2 parts. Is the 9th Street project part of this proposal? And then, and I wanted to ask about the pool that will be coming. Would that be a part of it?
9th, that was just completed.
9th Street project, that's, yeah, that was just.
It went through the system. We obviously didn't have this in place. We made a recommendation to add funding for the as arts and aesthetic for that project above and beyond what the standard of the project would have been. So it kind of worked into it. Like I said, we were kind of doing things a little ad hoc up to this point. So that's kind of what we had to do. But yes, Design Council made recommendations to add funding for that project.
Will McAdams pool really a part of it?
Pools, boy, you probably know a little bit more about that
Yeah,
than I do.
so the council will hear back from the vote that we had that approved the aquatics plan. There was an additional option A and B that will cost an additional $1.1 million for all of the pools that we basically gave a green light to. So we're gonna wait and see what those additional aesthetics and art pieces look like. But
But this could potentially be like.
it won't be a part of this because it's already been approved, but that money is already there for that extra work.
So separate, okay.
When they came to Design Council, we did make a recommendation to add funding for arts and aesthetics for all of that, the pools and the splash pads.
Some months back, we had a couple bridges, east of Edgemore on Douglas and First Street. And one of the objections that came about were the steer rails that were going to be put on the bridge. Is that something that this is supposed to address?
Yeah, increased aesthetics or artistic expression in utilitarian items like handrails, absolutely.
Okay, well, that was something that was very concerning to the neighborhood that, hey, you taking these nice looking bridges and now you're just gonna land them out and we're gonna lose something in our neighborhood.
That's one thing in the ordinance we kind of went back to, there's verbiage in there that talks about renovation or maintenance type projects. And we kind of really went back and forth on how to address that when you have an existing structure. You're gonna do maintenance to it, when does it kick it into?
This was a tear down and replace.
If it's a tear down and replace, and which one was this one again? Which bridge?
East of Edgemore across that creek on Douglas.
That one, I think,
And Third Street. And then
that one is
Third?
right by the
Okay,
McAdams
Third.
Park, right?
Hmm?
Right by McAdams.
Edgemore, further east.
I know we talked about that one in design council.
Yeah. So the,
So that was the one under the canal route that you're
Yeah.
referring to.
those bridges will have, powder coated steel in the green that was talked about at DAB with some design in the rail work.
Okay, so those, not necessarily what that did, but is that what you're designed to address, is add something to the project that
It's kind of, a lot of times what
addresses
it
the
is.
neighborhood issues?
Yeah, a lot of what it is, what we try to do is take what we know we're gonna have, a railing, and get an artist on the team to actually create something significant or something that's connected to the neighborhood or history with those elements that we're going to be
To
building
reference
anyway.
back on 25th Street, just to the west of Market Street, there's a bridge there that covers the canal there. It has some art elements in it that I thought was very aesthetic to the neighborhood, just down from my shop.
I'll have to get up there and look at it, I'm not sure if I can place it in my mind.
That was, I thought was well done addition. Of course, then the one at my shop that's actually on Market Street, just to the, between 24th and 25th Street, was very austere, and I painted it. With permission of the mayor and city manager.
So this design council, says that, city partners with the design council designate certain projects as having special considerations. Those projects are then reviewed by the design council, and recommendations are provided on funding levels and how to include public art. So with that, do you have, a listing of what the design council wants you to complete from now to the end of the year? Are there projected projects, that's causing this request for an increase from maybe 1% to 2%? And so, the only direct question I have in correlation to that is, what necessarily caused it? And I mean, I see this, I understand this, but, do you have too many projects to take on at this point? Or do you have from the design council an idea of where they want you, kind of to his question of where they want you to implement, different, because when you say specific projects, I'm interested to know what are some of those specific projects?
Okay. Yeah. Typically, the ones that raise the red flag for us are bridges, parks, obviously aquatics gets thrown into that. Anything in the core, typically streetscapes, also major corridors beyond the core, kind of like 9th Street, bike paths, public buildings, not like a water line or something like that, but libraries, things of that nature. Let's see, what else do we, that's kind of.
So have they, let's just kind of get, so have they told you they want to see Old Town look like blah, blah, blah? They want to see South Wichita look like? Have they told you what specific areas they want to concentrate on? So we talk about tourists. So when a tourist comes to Wichita, do you want them to come to 9th Street, or do you want them to come to Old Town, or do you want them to come to, and that's what I'm really trying to get at, because these are general and broad terms of why this increase is being asked for.
Well, it's actually, really, it's not an increase over what we've been doing, it's actually kind of a decrease. But this will actually kind of solidify the process and hopefully get the money spread around to more projects. But again, we're kind of at the mercy of each year in the CIP, which projects are coming up. And we look at that with staff and council. We make a recommendation, we don't necessarily approve or anything. We make a recommendation to council. And if there's a project that's near and dear to their heart in that community, and there have been those.
And that's what I'm asking, can you tell me one area that the design council has targeted that they want to see these types of things take place?
Well, again, city core has always been a focus, but we've also talked a lot more about being more diverse and spreading it around as much as we possibly can.
So to help out and also answer Joseph's question earlier, 17th Street's my announcement later. Tomorrow we'll be voting on aesthetic improvements between Broadway and 135. They took into account what's been going on at McAdams with League 42. So those street improvements will also incorporate baseball, and the base for the statue of Jackie Robinson will be built from these extra dollars. Right now, there is no guide, which is where this is coming from, where that comes from, so they had to squeeze money from different places, but the design that will be shown at council tomorrow will show what that street looks like. The crosswalk will incorporate baseball. The street improvements on both sides of the street will incorporate a walkway, which will highlight baseball. Not only will the base be built for the Jackie Robinson statue, but also a sitting area that highlights baseball as well, and black baseball players from Wichita, because the Bob Thurman Field is over there and highlighting different athletes. So that type of thing is what would be added in this. The difficulty in the CIP as far as area is the new council guidelines kind of changed where those projects come up. So every year, there's a list of projects that meet those guidelines. They'll be asked to look at what the art improvements are to those specific projects, which will bounce all around the city in every district.
And that makes sense. I just want to make sure all areas are included.
I think that's the intent, and I think that, you know, it all just depends, on that CIP and where the bulk of the projects are.
So one of the questions I have is, the funding that we talked about, 1.4 million, is about what we've averaged. Have you seen, from your perspective, that it's relatively consistent, or are there spikes? And
According to staff analysis, it's been pretty consistent over the last 5 years.
but then to go ahead and get that just requires lots of different effort. For this project, you're gonna go ask, and this project, you're gonna go ask.
You start squeezing rocks.
Right.
In a lot of places.
So, my guess, and this is more of a question than for you, I guess, if staff is actually recommending a 1%, which is actually a decrease from what you've currently, did I say that right?
They're saying 1.5
1.5.
over the 3 funding sources.
Which is a decrease slightly.
Which is actually it's a decrease over the entire CIP.
Right. My guess is that they're essentially trying to go ahead and lay at least something consistent, but then still give themselves some ability to go ahead and swing where you need to for larger projects. Does that feel about right?
Yeah, there's flexibility for us to say that we need to add a little more to this or take away from this other project. But this just lays that baseline, and like you all, I think it should be more, but, we'll see how that goes.
My personal feeling, and I've thought this since we started this process before, without the funding source, but kind of the distribution, is that we need a few years in audit the projects in a way that says, okay, did we put too much money at that? Did we not have enough for that project? Are we dispersing it well? Do we need more? Do we need less?
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll know that until we're 5 or 6 years in.
And the other problem, I guess, that this kind of helps solve is, so using 17th Street, there was money allocated to do the work. There was no specific dollar amount given to art, so then it's always a secondary thought. So then when the artist says, let's do this, this, and this, now engineers have to try to take away from some curb or something like that. So this just kind of allocates out front some money to consider for art.
Yeah, and hopefully gets rid of the situation of getting down the road, oh, you need an artist now, and then they plot something right in the middle that doesn't make sense.
Can you talk to us about how the artists will be selected? I know that you talked about RFPs being submitted. Can you walk us through that process of
Sure.
how we're gonna ensure that bids aren't going to the same artists?
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I've been doing this a long time, and, you know, it seems like we've lost a lot of available artists. Either they've just dropped out, not doing public art, or they left town, whatever the case may be. So the pool's a little shallow right now, and what we want to do is sit down after we get this passed and start writing guidelines. And what the intent is to create kind of an artist registry that basically has some criteria for artist inclusion. You get on the registry, and all the consultants, when they come and put a proposal together for a project, can then start going through a broader list of artists, because I think everybody agrees that having 3 artists doing all the projects in town probably isn't the right way to do it. They may be great artists, but, you know, we want a diversity there. So that's the intent.
Thank you.
Real quick, can you go over the other communities that have done this? I think just go back to the previous slide, perhaps. I saw Oklahoma City. And also, are you able to identify advantages that those communities have reaped as a result?
Well, Ty, actually, this might be more your bailiwick, since that's your arena, I think.
Well, I think that
He's more worldly than I am.
I don't really go that far, but I think that, you know, really attachment to place is really what we're trying to achieve, whether it's a placemaking project or an art project. The goal is to really make people fall in love with where they are. And, you know, this isn't rocket science. I mean, you need to have beauty and aesthetics in a city so you fall in love with your city and you want to be there. So I think, you know, these are all growth cities. I don't know if you can directly attribute growth to a 1% of their capital budget being allocated to art, but I think it speaks to a mindset of and a recognition of the importance of aesthetics in creating quality of life, which has been identified by Project Wichita as one of their priorities. Project Wichita is a community engagement piece that's been going on in town for the last year plus. So they've really embraced quality of place, and we think this is consistent with that larger mission to get people to have a greater attachment to their home, but at the same time attracting tourists and others, and getting some of that new money to come in town from outsiders as well.
So, as far as projects that are out there or about to come up, how do people give recommendations? Do they come directly to the design council, or?
I would go to your council. I would look at the CIP, find those projects that are in your district in the next 10 years, but preferably in the next couple, because things move around a little bit, and talk to your council.
So you make a formal recommendation to him and he'll pass it along?
Well, he'll make sure that staff knows, and he'll make sure the design council knows. And then when we look at it, again, we'll make recommendations based on, you know, input, both from staff and council as well. And then we make our recommendation for how much additional money for this project. And that's just based kind of on our feel and our experience. You know, and again, that's why the audit's necessary, so we can hone that. You know, is 5% more adequate, is 10% more, is 2% more.
Awesome. With that shameless plug, tomorrow is one of the public opportunities to talk to us about the budget and the CIP. So those documents are out there. So all of our projects for the next 10 years will be listed. So definitely check those out. Before I go to the public, is there any more questions for Dab?
Thank you. Just, you know, it's good to see, you know, all of the aesthetics, see all the artwork around downtown, you see it on the building, so it does, you know, in some sense, brings some vitality to the, you know, to the downtown area, to the, you know, old town, to other areas, and so I always think it's a good thing. My only concern with that is I just want to make sure we're represented throughout the entire Wichita, because I believe there's a rich history in every area of Wichita, and that would be my only concern.
Awesome. All right, so for the public, again, with these agenda items, we try to keep records really good. So please If you have a comment, step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and we will hear from the public.
I'm John Reddick, 1510 East Ninth Street, McAdams, Midfield, and I got a question for the gentleman. Is there any accountability to the artists that are doing the work? We owned the church, or we had a church on Ninth Street where they did the mural on the side of the building. Well, the artist decided to go ahead and tag our building right beside it. And the only reason why I know it's him, because he signed every one, but he did the whole building.
On a private building?
Yes.
That wouldn't be part of the public art program.
Well, he did it. The guy that painted the building, he signed it all, Eater, on, I looked at the, mural, it's signed Eater, all the tag work is signed Eater, it happened at the same time.
Yeah, typically,
We're gonna take care of it, I'm gonna ask for them.
no, but public art is typically only in the public realm on public buildings. They wouldn't be sanctioned, just paint them privately.
Well, he did.
Yeah, that was a privately funded project, that wasn't funded by the city.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Danielle. What do I need to say?
Just your name and address.
Just name is fine, we have an address.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Danielle Johnson. I just had a question for you, in regards to what Joseph was saying about picking the artist. How are you going to, you said you're gonna come up with a registry or something for them to sign up. How are you going to put that out differently than what you've done before? Because if people weren't hearing about these opportunities before, what's gonna be different now?
That's a good question, and we don't know the answer to that yet. We're waiting on the ordinance to pass before we actually go through those guidelines and put that together. That, I'm gonna need a little bit of help with additional people from design council and arts community and how that actually gets formulated. The idea is to make sure that it's very public and people are aware of it, because obviously if you don't know it's there, you know, contact.
Right. Okay.
So they are taking recommendations, so if you have a recommendation, you can definitely say it, we're keeping track of those notes.
Oh, say it now. Oh, okay, Casey Green. He is a WSU graduate, graphic design graduate.
Yep.
But he's been looking for these opportunities, and we always see them as they're being done versus how did how did they get that information?
So is your recommendation artists at universities? Like reaching out to some universities?
I say, like, in my idea, I'm thinking more social media, because that's how word gets out more, so, putting it out on different social media pages or whatever outlet, and put the sponsor so that it goes to everybody, instead of making people specifically go to a page and look for this information, kind of put it in everybody's face, and then everyone gets the same opportunities.
Great idea. Any other comments from the public? I know one of those.
So my name is Jane Burns, and I'm thrilled that it's not only pieces of art, sculptures and murals, splendid as they are, but that you're doing landscaping, crosswalks, in that placemaking, you're also making those places safe and accessible. And doing it in the funding stream of art is absolutely splendid. Thank you. Crosswalks, did I mention crosswalks?
Hi, my name is Eric Miller, 952 Baltimore. So, to the question of whether it makes a difference, I'm an engineering manager for a company here in Wichita, and we hire engineering talent from all over the country. And so we have engineers competing for jobs from anywhere from New York, New Orleans, Houston, California, here in Kansas. And so it does make a difference when we bring these engineers in to show them the city, to show them what we have to offer. And when they see the Keeper of the Plains, and they see all the different artworks in Old Town, all the different areas where they decide to go there, it does make a difference. So I just wanted to say that.
Any other comments from the public? Going once, twice, we'll bring it back to the DAB. Any additional questions, comments, feedback to give?
The only input I have is I think I kind of like staff's recommendation that does actually provide a base funding, but still probably gives some flexibility to splurge on other things that would require some additional coordination, but at least gives some basis for planning.
Well, being that the recommended action was just feedback, I don't think we have to have any votes. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 8. Camila?
I'm Scott Nabel with Metropolitan Area Planning Department. Item number 8 is a requested zone change, which is an amendment to the Revolution Planned Unit Development located at the southwest corner of Central and Volusia Street. The proposal is to expand the development to include 2 new parcels. One is the parcel immediately to the west, where there has been a recent expansion of the development itself, but this proposal would also allow that expansion to include what's called a common consumption area for alcoholic beverages. That would be on parcels 1 and 2. In the planned unit development amendment that was submitted, there is a designated area where that would occur. This amendment also creates a third parcel, which is south of the alley on Estelle. That parcel predominantly is recommended for use for parking, although there is a requested waiver of the paving requirement of that parking, and the parking as proposed be a gravel parking lot. Third primary issue that is addressed by this amendment is signage that is on facing south on the alley, painted wall sign that states Revolution, which is actually not permitted by the current PUD, and the PUD amendment would address that. For those of you who are not familiar with the Revolution PUD, it's a outdoor food and vendor court that is the outdoor plaza is surrounded by buildings that are constructed out of storage containers, interconnected as the primary building design. And then some of the other features of the development are a recently installed pedestrian crossing at Central Avenue in Volusia, a transit stop, as well as bike share, and now, since our staff report was written, also the scooters are at the site as well. The surrounding site along Central itself is predominantly a commercial corridor with properties zoned LC limited commercial. Properties south of the site are residential properties, 2-family residential. So it's kind of a mixture. The Revolution itself is along Central in the commercial corridor and immediately abuts the residential uses, just like all of the other commercial uses along the Central corridor do. The 2035 future growth concept and the comprehensive plan identifies this area as appropriate for new employment development, and the property is also located in what's the community investments plan calls the established central area, which is an area that is recommended for increased levels of infill redevelopment as a major policy goal. If you will recall what this site was previously, it was a vacant commercial property, and has been infill, keeping one of the 2 commercial buildings that was on the site, and then repurposing the rest of the site with the container infill. Staff is recommending that the proposed amendment be approved, and is basing that on the following findings. One of the things that I should mention is that when the Planning Commission considered this at their meeting, they did not grant the waiver of the paving requirement for the parking on parcel 3. The applicant is asking and will ask the City Council that the Planning Commission's recommendation for that waiver of the paving requirement be overridden, and is asking that this body make that recommendation to the City Council. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions from the DAB? Seeing none, going out to the public. Any questions from the public, comments? Please approach the podium, state your name for the record.
My name is Ellen Corner, and I have visited Revolution. I think it's a really neat place, but I have some questions. I have some friends who live behind the present Revolution, and they have complained about parking. And they had to go within their own self. They got their neighbors together, and they put signs up, and that sort of helped the parking. If you increase this area, right now, but you added to that, where there was some parking off to the west, and then you added some more buildings there, which took out half of that parking. Are you gonna guarantee that, I don't live there, but I have a friend who does, and if he knew that this was gonna be spoken about, he would have been here. I didn't know that this was gonna be spoken here. What kind of guarantees are you gonna do, or gonna give, that are gonna make sure that there's enough parking in that area that the neighborhood is not gonna be affected?
Keep track of that question. And
Yeah,
have you
sure.
come up at the end of that. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He's listening. I'll ask him to come up after the public gets done. Yep.
I'm back, I'm Danielle Johnson again. So, this is why I'm really here. So I live at 434 North Volusia, which would be the very first house coming down Volusia Street on the left. This has been an ongoing issue for us as well. I've been dealing with this for about a couple weeks. I went to a city meeting that we had a couple weeks ago and kind of addressed our concerns there as well. From there, we had a separate meeting with Russ, who's the planning consultant for Revolution, and tried to kind of come up with some solutions. I also had a meeting with Michael Ramsey, who is the owner of Revolution. Our issue we have the bike share that's at the beginning of the street, and a stop sign so the road goes like this, of course. With the bikes there, cars park along on the other side of the road, right up at the stop sign, as close as they can possibly get to it. We park all the way down the street, so it does not allow for us to come down the road if cars are coming out. So it completely blocks it, which is a safety hazard. If that was an emergency vehicle, they would be stuck there waiting for the cars to turn. So we did have I'm not sure of his name, the city engineer was also there at our meeting, and he is supposed to be getting no parking signs put up. That should be done by this week. We really hope to see that. If that's not done by this week, then I am told to contact him again. Our other problem was we were trying to figure out how to get no parking on our street for other people other than residents. We asked for resident-only parking signs. The city did not, or they told us that is not possible. It's just something that Wichita doesn't do. So the next step would be getting completely no parking signs. However, that would stop ourselves from being able to also park in the street. So we're kind of at crossroads there. Mr. Ramsey, we did speak, and he is trying to get a little patience on our end. So he's going to get signage up in and around Revolution, asking customers to respect the neighborhood and respect neighbors, as well as signs kind of directing them on where to park their actual parking spaces. That was that issue. The parcel 3, the one that they are trying to get the new lot in the back that they were discussing, we have asked for that to be only parking. There was talk at one point of putting maybe another two-tower building there. We've asked for that to be completely only parking to open up more parking spaces. And we're trying to also, we're actually with Revolution on the fact that we want it to remain gravel and not paved. Our reasoning behind that is as soon as you pave it and you paint lines there, it limits the number, it's a set number of parking spaces. If it's gravel, people can pull in and, kind of make more spaces or, Tetris it a little bit there, so it opens it up a little bit more. So, which they do, which that's been effective. We've seen that happen with Riverfest or ball games or whatever, where people will do that, parking grass or whatever, so that helps out a lot. We did try to get the parking lot behind, there's a award store and a kids shopping store, whatever, that's got a huge lot that we try to talk to Mr. Ramsey about. They're not fans, so that's not we kind of stepped away from that issue. There was another solution to try to maybe put signs in the lot there next to me. It's just an open lot that a man owns. All he does is come and mow it. I don't really know what he does there, but try to put signs there saying, you know, if you violate parking, then your car will be towed. The city let us know that we can call the police, or the police let me know actually, because I did call the police because someone was completely parked in front of my driveway. We've had vandalism, all kinds of things coming from this. We're notified that we can call for them to tow the cars. However, that creates an issue. So we want to create less chaos as possible, but something needs to be done. So, yes.
My question for you is the majority of the issues that you're seeing during the day, evening, or is it generally all?
You know, so it really just depends. We see traffic constantly. It's a constant thing. We've talked about Estelle, which is the street on the other side of Volusia, or Revolution, which no one really parks there because it's not easily accessible to Revolution as Volusia Street is. So, you know, lazy Wichita, you know, people want the quickest, easiest route to get there. So, and I also spoke with Brandon Johnson this morning, and as far as the no parking signs and stuff, you know, people won't truly respect those signs anyways. Think they'll just be in and out really quick. So, oh, I can park here, nobody will notice. But 20 minutes for us, if I need to come home or my boyfriend comes home on his lunch break or something, and you're blocking my road. So.
Thank you.
I just want to commend you, young lady, for all of the legwork you've done. A lot of times, you know, you see an issue and you never really move on it, so you've taken a lot of steps. Hopefully.
Yeah, we're very passionate about this one. I mean, I guess there was a meeting that we weren't notified about at the beginning about Revolution before they even opened about parking, and we would have been able to address our concerns then. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make that meeting, so at this point, it's been a year, 2 years, I'm not sure, 2 years. And that's how long I've lived there. I literally moved in, and then Revolution moved in, and I was like, whoa. You know, I didn't move next to the ballpark or, you know, somewhere where we were expecting this traffic. That's not what, you know, we were expecting. It's a super quiet neighborhood. You know, we have kids on our block. It's very peaceful. It's very quiet. And we're excited about Revolution. I will say that. It's not something that we just completely don't want there. That's not our problem. Our issue is just we want shared space. We want it to be equal, and we don't want people blocking ours. Put yourself in our shoes is what we're asking.
So, if I remember, Revolution is supposed to be one of the sites where we, what's the word, promote walking. So they actually weren't supposed to have parking. I'm happy that they're gonna put in a parking lot. No, I'm serious. The original proposal was, if I'm not mistaken, was it's supposed to be walkable. And so, but like you said, which it seems are lazy. I don't think it's a good idea, but I mean, I would want to know with the developers or how we talk to adjacent businesses about having people park in their parking lots. I know Starbucks has a lot of slots, a few doors down. I mean, I parked in that area. I go to Revolution all the time, and I'll just grab a parking lot that's closed and hop out and hope I don't get a ticket. But I mean, it's I did. But so my thoughts are, are we working with, you know, adjacent businesses to see if we can partner? Because you're not going to get away from people parking in people's spaces, and we're going to want to get as close as we can possibly get. But so if we can make it, if there's a direct route we can direct them, like parking's down here versus saying, okay, I really would like you to walk up to, I don't think that's gonna, clearly that's.
So I think that would go into our issue with signage, where we're wanting, you know, signs, this is Revolution parking, you know. I think if people see more of a signage and say, okay, this is where you can park, versus just find somewhere and, you know, think about it and upset the neighbors, you know, they would see that and say, oh, okay, well, this is an actual lot we can park in, or this is a space we can park in, versus having to come down our block and figure it out, and especially during events.
Yes, ma'am. So is it like recommended to talk to adjacent, but also have you, and how do you consider it? That would be my question.
Yeah, I'll address all,
Okay.
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Of course. Have you talked with the neighborhood association, which is the Uptown Neighborhood Association in that area?
No, sir. But I can, I mean, I've talked to everybody under the sun at this point, so if they,
Well, the only reason why I was asking is because it is in the boundaries of the Uptown Neighborhood Association, and I was just wondering if they was in support of you, with what you was trying to do.
I've actually not contacted them, which would have been a good idea, I didn't even think about that, because they do send us newsletters and things like that such, but, no, that didn't even cross my mind, we went straight to the, straight to the people. So, anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
Any other public comments? Going once, twice? All right, we'll bring conversation back to the DAB. Mr. Ramsey, would you like to respond?
Isn't it great that we're here talking about parking?
It is.
I mean, here's a scenario where it's this great neighborhood in transition, and we're talking about parking. I mean, that's progress. I mean, it's great. And so what we've done so far is that, we started out small, and we tried to build a trust bank. And then during this process, as we're getting bigger, we tried to change incrementally. And, as we make mistakes, then we try to change for those mistakes. And, what we talked about during our meeting is what we're planning on doing. And one thing is that, the main problem about parking is that people are lazy and they're not parking in the appropriate spots. Not only did we, initially we limited our spots, because there's not that much parking in that area anyway. So, with the help of the city, we brought in a crosswalk so people are able to use the open lots across the street in that neighborhood. And plus, now all of a sudden we have two neighborhoods that are linked together. And that's the only place that you can, safely cross from Grove to Hillside, which is what, half a mile or so? So now all of a sudden those two neighborhoods are together. And that also allows people to park across the street. But, people in Wichita, they're not thinking that way. So we do need to reinforce that, and that's what we talked about. We need to reinforce that not only visually in the parking lot, but also visually inside of Revolution. So we had talked about how we do that during our meeting. So we're gonna start putting those signs up immediately, and we had actually, right after our meeting, we had our PR people out there, how we can make those signs work from not a negative standpoint, but a real positive standpoint. And then also, we're gonna double down with that with our social media stuff. How do we respect that neighborhood around us and actually bring the neighborhood, it's a positive thing, we want to, we're sharing the neighborhood. So, we have a responsibility to share, the neighborhood. We have a responsibility to give back to the neighborhood that we're sharing from the neighborhood, right? So, that's how we are addressing that part of it. The third part is that we're gonna, we're trying to get the signs up from the city standpoint about not parking in front of driveways. And I don't care if it's the people that lease from us and it's their customers. If they're parking in front of their driveway, they need to get towed. And if we just do that a few times, people are gonna learn. And we just need to be aggressive about that. If you break the rules, you gotta pay the price, right? So we just need to be more aggressive about that. And and I talked to the people that lease from us in Revolution, we're gonna talk about
something. I think we really need to be more aggressive about that. And then we also talked about the bike share, and I would like to, we can limit the scooters because that's taken up a whole bunch. I would like to leave the bikes there because it's the whole thing about the traffic calming. You know, when you turn that corner and the bikes are there, it makes you slow down. But we can't have cars parking on the other side because that creates a real problem. So I think we're getting a sign across there, so it's going to address that. I really don't want that parcel paid for a lot of reasons. The main reason is I'm a big believer in rainwater retention. And when we built Revolution, we spent a lot of time looking at projects in hot areas and projects in cold areas. And you know, we wanted to expand our seasons and get people in Wichita outdoors more. So we took lessons from Denver, and we took lessons from Oklahoma City and from Tulsa and even from Phoenix, and tried to extend our seasons at least 1 or 2 months longer. And one of the things that we learned is that if we put everything on concrete, you know, that's a heat sink, and we didn't want to do that. And then associated with that, anything that we put in concrete, all of a sudden all the rainwater just goes right into our streets and then into our gutters, and then that's a problem. You know, that was an empty lot for 15, 20 years, and it's been fine with, you know, absorbing all that water for all those years. All of a sudden now we're going to pave that. It's going to go right into the gutters, and this, you know, other cities are adopting new policies where parking lots do not have to get paved, especially secondary parking lots. It's just ridiculous, and I'm going to fight that tooth and nail. You know, that doesn't have anything to do with expense or anything else. And in fact, we built Revolution on grade, on top of existing dirt because of groundwater retention issues. It costs us more money to do it that way. So that's what I believe in the parking lot too. In regards to guaranteeing you the scenario with with future parking, you know, we bought the building across the street mainly because there's 40 additional parking spaces right behind that building. That's where all the people that lease from us, that's where their employees park. We bought the building across the street from us that we're developing. We already have 2 new businesses there that have a parking lot behind it for more parking. So, you know, we're buying buildings that I even hate to say this, but we're buying buildings that really we're getting them for parking. So, I mean, who knows what we're going to do in 15 years with cars anyway, but we're not, I don't want to limit Wichita just because we're worried about a car. You know, I believe enough about Wichita that I don't want to limit Wichita just because of a car. And I don't think you want us to do that either. If we are going to develop something, you know, I'm certainly not going to hamper the people the young entrepreneurs that are coming in that space. We're not going to overload the space so much that nobody's going to ever want to come there because they can't get to it. That would be ridiculous on our end. So if we do, you know, and I'm not sure I even understand your question because there's not really, you know, we're not planning on doing any more development in that area because we can't do anything that's more dense.
Mike, could I clarify my question?
Yeah.
What kind of studies have you done to look at the new businesses coming in, the employees that are going to be working there, and the proportion of the number of parking spaces you should have? Are you just sort of saying, oh, we'll just open this parking space, or have you done some studies as to what amount of parking do you need?
Oh, absolutely. We looked at other density studies from other cities. Sure.
Okay, so are you taking into account the building? Because I know you had that parking space off to the west, and I So,
Yeah, no, Russ, you can, I mean,
so do you have, can you show that, as how many spaces you're gonna have? Just join them.
yeah, the original DAB, I mean, the original PUD that we had had a lot less parking than what we have right now. Tremendously less.
So Russ Haiti, Boston Company, I'm working with Mike on getting this zoning change through the process. So
Speak into the microphone, please.
Yes, sir. So, the original PUD set entirely within what is shown as parcel one, where the Little Lion, building had always stood. That represents probably 80 to 90% of all the leasing space in the development. And that only provided, we sought and received approval for only 10 spaces, again, with the idea that this was going to basically be one of the first and best examples of a pedestrian-oriented development, as well as in a redevelopment area. So when we expanded into parcel two, by no means did we take all the parking out of parcel two. I think we probably ate maybe 4 spaces, 5 parking spaces out of that west lot. So we only added maybe 5 or 10% of building coverage, but we doubled, in essence, almost tripled with parcel 3 the amount of parking spaces.
Yeah, so we added parking.
Yeah. Now the neighbors are saying, that's not enough, and there's still some situational parking. It's more of trying to get people to those spaces again on the west side of the development. So it's not a parking numbers issue. As a matter of fact, we can state that we've drastically improved on-site parking from that standpoint.
After, just to kind of piggyback off of that, and as a resident standpoint, when Michael took me around the building, so right where they built that new little addition onto the back in that parking lot where the funeral home is at, there's some cleaning up that has to be done, and some trash cans are gonna be moved over into another lot, and then it's gonna create a lot more spaces. They are gonna get some lines to actually make it parking spaces there, so from what I've seen, on the property at least, it does look like there are some more spaces going to be coming open. It's just kind of a time thing on when they can get it cleaned up, move the trash cans and that such, and also putting up a new fence, back there too. So I think it's in the works, but like Russ said, it's just more of getting people to those spaces at this point instead of.
Certainly, parcel 2 will get freed up for more parking, devoted parking, with, again, the trash receptacles moved to parcel 3, which can only occur after this.
I've been there, it's a wonderful place, but I've had a hard time finding a place to park, okay?
Well,
And I'm
the
glad-
bus goes right by. The bus goes right by.
Say something to her. I encourage a lot of my friends to come, and there's no way they can walk to it, because they live in different parts of the city, so.
The bus goes right by. The bus goes all over the city too.
You're dreaming.
Yeah, you're dreaming on that.
I'm dreaming a big dream there, absolutely.
Alrighty, any other questions from the
And Uber
public?
comes right by too.
All right, no questions from the public. We'll bring this back to the DAB. Any more questions from the DAB? Mr. Thompson?
Yes, you said that you bought the property across the street.
Yeah, across which way?
You mentioned earlier in your presentation that you bought the property across the street which way, north, west?
You know where the fire restaurant is?
Yeah.
Yeah, we bought that.
There we go. The only reason why I was concerned is because that's my neighborhood association,
Yes, sir.
and I was just concerned. Is it possible that, see, basically, what you have there is in the Elm Neighborhood Association, which is my association, and the one where your building is, that is in the Uptown Neighborhood Association. Is there possible that when you're doing renovation or changing things around, that you could notify those two neighborhood associations?
Oh, absolutely, sure, that's a great idea.
So Mr. Thompson is the president, so you make sure you get his information.
And quite frankly, that's on me. I did not realize that this was part of the Uptown Neighborhood Association.
Yes, it
I
is.
thought we were I thought we were east of that.
No. Because Uptown runs from Douglas to Central, Hillside to Grove.
And that building that's where the fire restaurant is, yeah, all we're gonna do is just paint that, but the building back behind there, we're gonna gut it and just put a small business in that. So it's not gonna be anything that's gonna be big, just, but still, your point's well made, it'll be taken care of.
No, I appreciate it.
I thought you mentioned, another building you purchased across, you said across the street, I see across Central, that's Fireside. Did you say somewhere else you purchased?
Oh, it's still on, it's just to the west of it, it's on the.
Across the cell?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you say you're gonna look to make that parking, or?
I'm not good, we don't tear
What's the
down
plan for
buildings,
Oh.
it just got big, it's got 40 spots behind it.
that? Oh,
So,
behind
yeah.
that? Oh, okay.
The issue with that is you have the building right there at the corner of the
Yeah, I
wall
see it.
central, so you don't.
You don't visibly
Can't
see
see
the
it,
parking,
yeah.
cause I parked in
Right.
that little nook behind there, I didn't realize there was more parking there.
Well, yeah, we're
Give
gonna
us some
put
signage.
signs up, absolutely, that's all gonna be taken care of. But we didn't know because we don't have the PUD thing done yet, so it's kind of a chicken and egg thing.
First of all, thank you for actually bringing a destination location to District 1. Congratulations and may you grow. Just for clarification, the only deviation that you're asking for from staff's recommendation is just about the parking lot. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually the recommendation of the planning commission, staff recommended it.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Any other questions from Deb? Just notification, once we bring it back to the DAB, we don't go back out to the public, so we will finish this conversation and then the DAB will approve or deny.
I have a question. I'm supporting of the gravel, provided you understand that that's gonna be more maintenance.
Yes,
than the concrete, you're gonna have ruts, and you're gonna have to come in and fill the ruts, and then you have snow plows, and you're gonna have to move that back into the, if you're okay, you can maintain that. I support the, having gravel.
Yeah, we own the pop-up park, so I'm real familiar with it.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, entertain them.
Just one last thing, so, to me, in summary, it just seems like you guys are on the same page now.
We're always on the same page, yeah.
We had one planning commissioner that wasn't on the page. We had one planning commissioner out of the 14 that was adamant about the paved, not gravel paved with asphalt or concrete.
And the signage stuff was always, I mean, that was reinforced to me, but we were always, it was a scenario that we, we moved pretty quickly between phase 1 and phase 2. And then we realized that we were hoping to have this kind of spillover stuff into the parcel three. And until we did that, we didn't want to invest in the signage stuff. So it was just this perfect storm of, we really weren't done yet. I mean, this isn't consistent with our development stuff that, it's just, we just didn't have good communication about timing. But we're all on the same page, except for adding a whole bunch of parking, but, and not riding the bus.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve staff's recommendation with the one modification that the parking lot not be paved and be maintained in gravel going forward.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Here comes the 2 hour.
We take a brief recess before the session.
This is gonna be 2.5 hours. You wanna take a recess?
No, let's get it done.
Let's get it done.
Right.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Let's get the timer.
I will give you a disclaimer. All righty, we're gonna continue moving through this meeting. So for the next topic, our next topic is TNR. I do want to say prior to Public comment, again, we will go out to the public. You'll have to come up to the podium to address the DAB with that. Please make sure, as I have read several emails, this is a respectful dialogue. All views are welcome here. So as this presentation begins, please remember that. We will move on to item number 9, TNR.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I love that lady over there. I really do. We all do. I know, she follows me all sorts of places. Hold on, here it comes. I was like. Okay, so I'm gonna start talking while she gets this mixed up. I'm quite a bit shorter than everybody, or taller than everybody else. My name is Stephanie McCurdy, and I am now the former chair of the Wichita Animal Services Advisory Board. And when I was chair, from the beginning of when this committee started, or this board started, TNR was always kind of a hot topic. And so we had a committee that was set up that was to research TNR and spay-neuter services and bring that forward to the board. Unfortunately, this committee was never able to really find its own results. Thus, one of the committee members brought forward a potential ordinance on TNR, and we spent many, many meetings and called special meetings to go over this. And I'm sure that you have all not had a lack of data put in your email and conversations with people and learned a lot about TNR, which you may or may not have known prior to this. So I'm gonna make this as quick and painless as I can because I know everyone wants to get home and it's late. But TNR creates an opportunity to help protect people and animals while reducing conflict between cats as well as with humans and other animals. I'm ahead of the slide, but that's all right. Community-wide TNR programs are effective because they halt reproduction of existing cats through sterilization, and that leads to long-term management and reduction and the eventual elimination of outdoor cat populations that are currently here. It also gives an opportunity to vaccinate cats against rabies and addressing public health concerns and safety risks. It decreases the nuisance complaints by eliminating or dramatically reducing noise from cat fighting and mating and odor from unneutered male cats spraying urine to mark their territory. See a lot of people going, yep, they do that. It also eases the burden of community resources such as animal shelters that are flooded with cats and their offspring, especially during the spring mating season. And in some instances, it creates the immediate reduction of cats because kittens that are young enough to be socialized and be routed through the adoption process, and also friendly adult cats that we can route through the adoption process.
Sorry.
You're fine. Like I said, the consensus was not easy. We had many meetings. We had a lot of public comment. You guys think your meetings are busy? Come to one of my meetings. You'll be there for hours. And then January 2019, we were able to present an ordinance to the Wichita Police Department, thus leading me here today. In December of 2017, the city of Wichita did a community survey, and it felt that 20.63% of the respondents felt that feral cats were a nuisance in their neighborhoods. 64.41% of the respondents felt that the city should take an active role in assisting neighborhoods with this issue. And 48.56% felt that that was the most pressing issue for animal control was to reduce the euthanasia rate at the shelter. You're good, you're on the right slide.
Do you have the clicker? No, it's a little remote. Thank you.
Somebody took your remote. Maybe not, is this it?
Yes.
We have a clicker, we're in business. All right, here we are. So as I explained to you when we were getting this up, this is the same thing that I talked about how the ordinance came to be. And then the purpose of the ordinance was to recognize the need for innovation in addressing the issues presented by feral and free roaming cats. And it recognizes that trap, neuter, and return program is a viable option to manage and over time reduce the population of community cats. It relies upon volunteer caregivers to track trap-free roaming cats to be spayed, neutered, and vaccinated. And then they get a rabies shot, they're ear-tipped, and then returned to the location which they are found. If they were originally trapped with the owner's permission, they go back or to an alternate location. Ordinance highlights, we've kind of already been through this. The one thing that I will kind of note on this one is feral cat, one that is unsocialized to humans and has the temperament or extreme fear and resistance to contact with humans. And a community cat means it's an ear-tipped feral cat that may be cared for by a designated caregiver. In the immediate area, community cats are not domesticated. So just to give you some statistics from the shelter, in 2013, we've euthanized 2,961 cats. It's slowly progressed and gone down. So in 2014, we euthanized 2,353 cats. 2015, 2,118 cats. 2016, 1,630 cats. 2017, 1,227 cats. And 2018, we only euthanized 920 cats. In 2015, there was an organization here in Wichita that started doing TNR at a very high level. So in 2015, they TNR'd 662 cats. In 2016, they did 906. 2017, they did 908. And then in 2018, they did 1,017. And as of last month's meeting, when I asked, they had already done 483, which I know that they've held 2 sessions since then, so I would expect they're gonna be around 600 by now. So if you notice, whenever they start doing more TNR, the euthanasia starts to drop in the shelter. So a couple more ordinance highlights. There is mandated registration of cat colonies. That means if there's a cat colony that is already happening, they would have to register that with the city. It also has annual reporting requirements. And then it's applicable enforcement by animal services. So the question that we always get is what happens if a colony gets out of control? Enforcement is still able to be done by the city of Wichita and the Wichita Police Department with 2 sections in the ordinance that's currently there, 6.04010 and 6.04040. Those both will talk about nuisance and how they're able to work with a community member and either reduce the number of cats that they have and or they can confiscate if need be. Benefits of the ordinance, it's a community buy-in program. It creates other funding sources that the city would not have to pay for. Cat-related intake and euthanasia activities cost more than $1 billion annually. And not doing anything for TNR is a haphazard approach that has a little, it's been a really long day. I'm human, right? Today I would like to be a cat because I'm tired and I would like to go sleep on the porch somewhere. Has little impact on welfare and environmental or public health issues. Communities that do embrace effective cat management programs such as TNR are rewarded with goodwill from their residents, and large-scale sterilization programs depend on volunteer support. Non-lethal management programs are readily supported by the majority in a community, while lethal control will not be received with the same support and may actively be opposed, which we have already experienced here in the city of Wichita. Without TNR, it stresses shelters, overwhelms their resources, and far exceeds the capacity. It also gives false expectations to citizens that are coming to the animal shelter for help that it will resolve the problem. That's really all I have in my handy dandy presentation. But you guys are welcome to ask me any questions except for my mishap and my spelling and vocabulary today.
All right, any questions from the DAB at this point?
Yes.
Once you've taken a cat, you've done the treatment to him, you returned it, what keeps it from being captured and then euthanized anyway?
So if an animal is TNR'd, so that means it's trapped, it's neutered, and then released back into the area it is. If animal control is called out, so what they do is they assess the situation. I mean, what's the issue? Is it a nuisance? Does the neighbor just not like the cat? Does it need to be removed? Is it sick? There's a lot of different things that can happen. So let's just say if it's sick, then the animal is removed. It can be removed. If the animal is deemed a nuisance, we gotta figure out why it's a nuisance. What's it doing? Is it urinating on something? Is it bothering somebody else's animal? So they'll work with that colony caregiver to eliminate the problem. If not, then they can go back with the nuisance ordinance, and then they can eventually take the animal from the person, and then it will go to the shelter. If it's just a simple thing is, these cats are there, we don't know what they are. If they have an ear tip, that means that they're identifiable, that means they've been spay neutered, and they've been released back into their habitat.
That's the purpose of the ear tipping?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's so they can be identified. Yes?
The ear-tipped community cats, community feral, is that, if I'm saying that right? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but, I know you said you could release back into the same community or in another.
Mm-hmm.
What's the, do you have examples of the other?
Okay, so let's say that Animal Services goes out and there's a colony of cats and they need to be TNR. Okay, so this person, let's just say Mrs. Minks, we go out to her property and she has 4 cats, and we take them to do TNR, and she says, "I don't want these cats back." We say, "Okay," then we go put them somewhere else. You have to have, but you have to have an owner's permission. So we would identify somewhere that they would have to go.
So you find an owner,
Right.
you seek out one?
They have to have permission to put them back on the property. But if you have a community caregiver that's taking care of them and they want that colony TNR, so eventually with attrition, the cat colony will die off, they will want those cats back.
They're just not released, you find an actual.
Right, we just don't go release them we wouldn't go down to like City Hall and say, "Have fun." I mean, that's just.
The mayor's office is a great place to.
I know, I hear the mayor has this 19-year-old cat that he really adores, so we might put him in his office.
Because I think already you have a legally owned possession or responsibility for these cats once they've been TNR?
They're considered community cats, so they're taken care of by the community caregiver. So that person will be responsible for feeding them,
Like
giving
a
them
verbal
water.
responsibility or like paper? How do you make someone responsible for a community cat?
You can't make someone, but if they're already asking for help and they're already taking care of the animal, they're gonna continue to take care of the animal.
What would the other side of that look like? I'm sorry.
For clarification, is this not the same thing as registry with my notes? It's the same thing, so they're registered.
Yes.
Community caregiver is registered.
Well, that's what I asked. I said,
Yeah, so they're registered to take care of that colony. So they're the ones that are feeding it and watering it. Sorry,
It's clear that they sign up for this themselves, it's not like congrats.
Yeah.
well, I know, that's what, well, I did ask.
It's not like they went to a store and purchased the animal and that's their owned animal that lives inside their home. This is something that they've taken on responsibility for because they're there. And they've signed up to be one of those.
So in the event that they don't want the cat, they have to find another registered, or someone that would like to be registered to that colony.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
So, a caregiver is gonna be eligible to have care for 8 cats. How are you gonna monitor, the cats, when strays come in and join that colony?
Sure.
How
So
are you gonna monitor that?
I can't answer that question because I don't even own a cat. So that's my favorite thing to tell people. I don't even own a cat. But from all of the research that I have done personally and have read about is once you have a colony that is spay and neutered, vaccinated, return to the colony, there's a colony caregiver, they're not going to accept others into their colony.
One other question is, say for instance, each household is eligible for 8 cats. On an average block cat colony, you're looking at 360 cats in one block.
That's a lot of cats.
Yeah.
So, the other side of this is, when they register, obviously, we would know that. I mean, that's not something, I can't say it's not gonna happen, but the probability of every house having 8 cats
Well, you know, I'm sure it won't happen, but it's a possibility.
Sure.
You know, and, the other thing, you know, I'm looking at this ordinance and I'm thinking, if this ordinance passed, you know, there should be some guidelines as to how many households in one block can have a colony of cats. I mean, you shouldn't minimize that to where, you know, one block is not going to end up with 300 cats in it. You
That's a serious
should
amount of
put in
cats.
the guideline to where only 8 people or 10 people or 10 households or 15 households in one city block is eligible to have cats.
So what I didn't tell you at the very beginning of this presentation is TNR is already happening. And it's gonna probably continue to happen whether or not we have an ordinance or not. And it's because people are not just going to not take care of an animal that's outside. It's just, the probability is very slim of that.
Well, you know, I can understand that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if each household in this block can have cats, can you, I mean, the 8 cats for each household. Can you imagine what kind of nuisance that's going to be?
And then that's why we have the
300 cats
nuisance
in one
ordinance.
block.
We have it written in 2 places where animal services can step in and take care of that problem.
Any other questions from Dab?
So, what, can you kind of talk to us about what does that process look like? So do you have particular field agents that are designated to particular areas to see if there's a colony that needs to be TNR, or is there, what does that look like? Is there a field agent, is there someone from animal services, is this a Monday through Friday thing that they're going through our neighborhood, seeing if there's stray cats that need to be TNR, or what is that? Do you just go off of the database that you have with those people who have registered with colonies per se, or what does it look like? 'Cause I mean, I see several stray cats just kind of everywhere. So what does that process look like? I mean, to what you stated and what our concerns are, obviously there are benefits to what you're stating. One being minimizing the repopulation, if you will, or adding to the population of what's already there. So on that side, I see that as a benefit. But at the same time, I understand others' concerns as well about how it's a possibility that, you know, you can have this influx of cats on your block or in your neighborhood. So, you know, I'm just interested in what does that process look like?
Okay, so let me start off with what's happening now. So TNR is happening now already, and individuals are calling organizations and saying, I have a colony and I need help with them. Because they don't have the financial capability to spay and neuter, ear tip, and vaccinate, okay? So they're calling organizations, and these organizations are coming in, and they're helping trap the cats, then they're taking them to offset location, they're spaying and neutering and vaccinating, ear tipping for identification, and then they're bringing them back to that caregiver. Now, that's the only way currently we know that there's a colony, is if one of the organizations gets a call from somebody, and then they're aware that the colony is currently there. So this would be a step up, because then we would be able to identify where these are, okay? So, with that being said, would we rather not know where they are and let them continue on down their way, or would we like to know where they are so maybe we can be a part of the process? And then also, nothing's perfect, but you have to start somewhere, because we're already doing nothing and we see where we've gotten, right? So we want to get somewhere and get started, so that way we can make adjustments later on down the line.
So is there an alternative to when you do get these cats, to see if an owner wants to take them before you neuter them, before you TNR them, to see if a different owner wants to take them? Maybe not a colony owner,
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because they have enough already.
So I have seen the
So
situation.
maybe, because I would hate to say maybe there's someone else who would take the cat, but then also wants the cat to be able to produce,
Right.
you know, another, if you will, not 20, not. But I'm just saying, is there an alternative? Because I can see the opposition to you, or to your recommendation.
So.
I'm sure we're gonna hear it here in just a second.
Oh, you're gonna hear it.
But
I'm
is there
telling
an
you, it's coming.
alternative?
But there are two ways this can kind of go. We can either spay and neuter and reduce the cat population, and if someone wants a cat, instead of breeding a cat, they can head right on down to K96 in Hillside and pick one up. There's kittens that need to be bottle fed, there's cats that are under socialized that need socialization, there's adult cats, there's juvenile, you name it, any cat you want, we can get for you. We got a lot of cats. We do, we got a lot of cats. And to keep up the euthanasia rate down, we gotta adopt those cats out. So to stop the reproduction cycle, you have to spay and neuter. So that's really the only alternative, is to get them to spay and neuter these, so they're not reproducing, and so we don't have 360 cats on one block, because attrition kicks in, and the life of a cat that lives outdoors is significantly lower than an indoor cat. Because an indoor cat is getting constant love and attention, it's got its own scratch pad, it's not getting in, you know, it's not doing outdoor things. So their life expectancy is longer than an outdoor cat. But once that colony dies off, there's no longer a colony. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that, you guys get calls from people that have colonies of cats that they need help taking care of. I think number one is that if they weren't feeding those cats, they wouldn't have the colony of cats they had started with.
So do you want a bunch of dead cats laying around the city? Is that what we're looking at?
Pardon me?
Like a bunch of dead cats laying around? Because if they don't eat, they're gonna die.
Well, you know, if they weren't feeding them, they'd go someplace else. You know, that's what I'm saying.
Excuse me, I need to hear the question again, or is it a comment, Mr. Thompson? Y'all gotta help me with my notes.
What was the question?
Is it a question or more of a comment?
More of a comment.
Okay, say it again for me.
The people that is calling, that have colonies of cats that they need help with, if they weren't feeding the cats, they wouldn't have the colony they had to start with. And one other thing that, you know, I know here about 3 years ago, we had 2 people in my block that was feeding the cats. And I had terrible problems, nuisance, with cats coming down and digging in my yard and making deposits. And my neighbor and I, we set traps and we caught like 40 cats out of that one block. You know, and can you imagine, like I said, if you have 200 or 300 cats in one block, I mean, you know, when it happened.
Did you call Wichita Animal
Yeah.
Services and report them?
And one guy, they came out, the Humane Society came out and set a trap in his backyard. He would get up early in the morning and go out and let the cats out.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I can't speak to that specific incident.
No.
But I do know that KHS doesn't do that. That probably was Wichita Animal Services. KHS doesn't do anything outside their building, so. But it was Wichita Animal Services, and I'm glad that you called them.
Well, animal control,
Yeah.
I put it that way, I'm sorry.
And the reason why we call them is because if we don't know that there's a problem, we can't address it. I mean, we have nuisance laws for a reason, so they're able to, even right now, go out and help with those situations.
No, and plus the fact, are you gonna have enough officers and animal control people to maintain this ordinance that you is looking at approving?
Do we have now?
Will you have enough animal control people to enforce this ordinance?
Well, I hate to tell you this, but the Wichita Animal Services budget was cut this year. You can look at the guy 2 doors down from you. Sorry, Brandon.
So, you know, from what I'm seeing, this looks like it's gonna be an ordinance that's gonna be put on the books and not gonna be enforced.
So there's nothing, so let me start over. Let me dial back just a second. So, right now, TNR is already happening.
I can understand that.
It's already happening. There is no buy-in from the city currently. There will be no change, and if someone has an issue, they would still call Wichita Animal Services to report that. You would still be in the call for someone to come out eventually. I know that that's hard for a lot of us in this room to muster, but it's just higher priority calls. An animal injured, an animal attack to somebody, like, something that's threatening to people, that's what they're gonna go to first. But it still gets seen. Someone still will get to you. It's just a matter of time, just like it is now. So either way, it's still the same process. The only thing this does is open up opportunity for us to identify where the colonies are, to be able to help them better, so we can reduce the population, and essentially the population be gone.
And you said it's already happening now?
Mhm.
Is that, so you say someone calls these specific, are these private companies that someone is calling?
Yep, these are licensed rescues, they are organizations that already take in community dollars to help these people trap, neuter, and release these cats.
So that's why the city wouldn't have to
Yep.
have any financial burden.
There's no financial burden to the city with this.
So what is the relationship with the city and these private companies?
Well, I happen to be a part of one of these organizations, and we have a really good working relationship with the city, as well as there are other members in this that are gonna speak today that run organizations that do just specifically TNR. And they have good working relationships. So if they get called out and there's an issue and a community caregiver needs help, Wichita Animal Services will help them hook together so they can help these people. Because otherwise, there's no one else to help them. Yes, sir.
The only thing that I'm struggling with is one of the comments that was actually made about taking cats away and the community caregiver or whoever there does not want them back and then being relocated someplace else. That seems like just sending a problem to somebody else.
So there's a couple of different options that they can do. They can go to a barn, through the barn cat program, and they can end up outside of here in a barn somewhere and be barn cats.
Okay.
They can be, if they are young enough, we have had instances where we've picked up a litter of cats that has been born and we are able to, feed them, socialize them, and then get them into loving homes. But before they leave, they're also spayed and neutered, so they're not going to be reproducing. So there are other options besides just saying, we're just gonna pick up these cats and we're gonna move them and we're gonna drop them over here. Because first of all, we have to have the owner's permission, the property owner's permission to put them there. So there are other avenues that we would prefer before we get to that third choice.
Got it. Thank you.
Is it, relocation as a colony, or do you consider separation?
They could be separated at that point.
Any other questions from Dab? All right, we'll go out to the public. In a year and a half, I have not had to cut anyone off, but we do have a 5-minute time limit. So we will be taking time. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jared Cirillo. I'm a member of the District 3 Advisory Board, and we dealt with this a couple of months ago now. So, and our District Advisory Board overwhelmingly rejected this recommendation, and I strongly urge you to do the same. This current ordinance makes no sense. It's incomplete. It does not address the problem. It addresses the lives of cats, not the lives of humans. It makes no sense to return any cat, whether it is neutered, spayed, fixed, altered. It makes no sense to return a problem animal to anybody's neighborhood if it's a problem in the first place. If you had a problem with a feral cat colony damaging your property, creating significant odor on your property, You wouldn't want them returned. You probably called on to address this problem anyway, right? So it just makes no sense whatsoever to return these cats to the communities. These feral cats should be humanely euthanized if and when they are creating problems. These community caregivers are perpetuating the problem. That is the reality that nobody wants to address. These community caregivers are perpetuating the problem. They are feeding and caring for these cats, but they don't want to take responsibility for them. Feral cats colonies are extremely filthy, they smell terrible, and they damage property. The community at large does not know what's going on with this ordinance. This ordinance is being proposed and pushed by activists with emotions. And it does not address, if the community at large knew about this proposed ordinance, they would, in my opinion, it would be strongly rejected. I've discussed it with, I live on a cul-de-sac with only about 8 houses, but I've discussed it with all of my neighbors, and my neighbors are over, we don't have a community cat problem, and thankfully, but my neighborhood is strongly against something like this, returning cats to their communities. This ordinance has failed, or this recommended ordinance has failed at every district advisory board except for one. The community does not want this ordinance. Activists with emotions do. The TNR plan refuses to accept that microchipping would better track problem animals and who they belong to. But these community caregivers don't want them to belong. They refuse to accept responsibility for these animals. That's why they don't want them microchipped. This TNR ordinance wants to create unnecessary rules with people who don't want to accept that they are the problem. Caring and feeding for feral cats only perpetuates the problem. Also, something that Ms. McCurdy just said, if they release them somewhere else, then by Ms. McCurdy's own admission, these cats will travel back to their original colony. She told us at our district advisory board that they have evidence of taking feral cats hundreds of miles away, if I remember right, and within 3 days they returned to their original colony. So by her own admission, what she says isn't true. That's all I have. Thank you. Please say no.
Were there any questions for the speaker?
Thank you so
Good
much.
to see you again, buddy.
Good to see you too. Can you, activists with emotions, can you please explain to me what you mean by that? I just want a better understanding of what's leading.
There are very few people who take care of these or who are registered as these community cat caregivers. And I think one of my other notes, there's no difference between a community cat and a feral cat. A community cat is a feral cat. The community cat term was brought up by activists who don't want to accept that these cats are wild and they're feral and they are the problem. It's all with emotions. I think that unfortunately there is a food chain in all of planet Earth is based on a food chain. And this ordinance is putting cats above the food chain than humans. And it's not acceptable. I don't think.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
How do you suggest we take care of the people who are giving the food, euthanize them? You're not gonna stop them.
That's the problem. It needs to be,
How?
the current ordinance we have is not enforced. I just read a Facebook friend of mine posted just 2 or 3 days ago that he called animal control with a feral cat problem, and they refused to take them. They did nothing. That's not what our current ordinance says will happen.
But how do we stop the people? Because unfortunately, I have a mom that, she's in Salinas, so we don't have to worry about her. But she takes care of dozens of cats. That, of course, she's on the outskirts of town, so that's not a big problem for the city. She's gonna take care of them, there's only one way to stop her, and I've tried killing her several times and it never worked. It was all accidental, didn't I? But so how are you gonna stop the people from doing this? Because they're not gonna stop.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what the
So,
solution is, but
if that's gonna be what they're gonna do, isn't this a good solution for taking care of the cats so that they can't repopulate?
returning them to the, no,
Well, see, because the cats are gonna move in when you take the population out. This puts a population in to keep them from moving.
if someone is calling about a problem that is, if your mother has all of these cats and she's in the middle of nowhere, they're not creating a problem for anyone else, I suppose then it's never gonna be reported to begin with, right? If it is creating a problem for someone else, then these cats should be taken to the Humane Society or wherever, and in 12 days, if they are not claimed, they need to be humanely euthanized.
One thing my mom does do is she takes the cats on her own and goes down to the vet, and they take care of them, and then they put them back out. And so she kinda does the TNR.
That's exactly what TNR is.
So, but she does it privately, she does it with her cats, and when they go away, they go away.
Has she had neighbors complain about them or
Well,
whatever?
actually, they kinda like the idea of having the cats around because they don't have to worry about mice in their house.
So.
I think someone else can address that.
So, just so we can bring this back to, I think Joe's, what he's, in reference to your question, about the emotion. If you like cats, you like cats. And you're gonna do whatever it takes to take care of them, whether they're feral or whatever they're called. But I think the issue here is, I can't force my neighbor to accept my love for cats, and I got 15 in my yard just because I love them. And they're all in my neighbor's yard and in my neighbor's territory, just because I love them and I want to give them bread scraps. That causes issues for other people in the neighborhood. And even if we spay and neuter them, I still have 15 that every day she comes home. It's just as much her right to be there without them as it's my right to want to have them. So to me, in all of this, what is the city ordinance? What does it take to get the city ordinance enforced? Because I cannot, no matter how much I love a cat, or no how people like always say about dogs, well, he won't bite. That still don't make me like him. And I'm not entitled. I'm not liable to like it, no matter how much you tell me it doesn't bite. And so I think that's the issue we're having here. And that's a good question, is if we can remove the emotion and to see it for really what it is. I don't like hurting animals, but that doesn't mean she has to accept 35, 40 cats next door. And so we need to come to how can we get the city ordinance enforced? If the city ordinance is not being enforced, then we need to go to the next step, and that's why we have city councilmen. That's why we have. And so that's, all of this can just come to a nut, because that's what this is about.
All right. Thank you for coming from District 3.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patty McKee. I live at 1244 South Pershing, which is in District 3, sir, and I should know you. However, I do not. I'm honest. Okay, your fault. I love cats. I had a cat for 17 years. She was a rescue cat in Hays, Kansas. I got from the Humane Society when she was 3 years old. And I miss her terribly. But I don't miss cats because there are so many in my neighborhood. There are 3 people right around me who love the cats and feed them. I have lately caught 3 cats in a trap and got them fixed in the years, the TNR thing. They were also given chips so they can be trapped, and a rabies shot, which is wonderful. And I appreciate that greatly, and I'm going to continue to do that work myself. These people are well-meaning, all of them. Mr. Heflin I'm sorry, is that your last name, sir? Your mother is a very kind, loving person, and so are the people around me who feed the cats. I'm trying to live with this. They did break into my house in the crawl space and lived in underneath my house as I heard them through the grates. This winter having fights and scuffles, and when winter was over, I had that boarded up. I no longer have that screen over my crawl space. My neighbor, who does feed them regularly every day, has had her house broken into twice, and was air conditioning the whole neighborhood for a while, and which is not even funny, because I know what my bill is. And they will do anything. They will do anything. They are kind-hearted people, but it needs to be stopped. TNR is an integral part of working to curb and eventually lessen this problem. We will never eradicate it when people are feeding cats. The cats will continue to multiply, and these people will not become responsible cat owners, as this previous gentleman just told us from District 3 Council. He's right. It's just that way. They will not ever get anyone to sign up to be the community cat caregivers, because that requires them being responsible to somebody to follow guidelines that are not in the proposed ordinance. He's right about that too. There are no specifics about who's responsible, who they are responsible to, what they have to do. There are not even a list of, if you're gonna feed feral cats, you should feed them, put food out for a specific amount of time every day, 15 minutes, maybe tops, if I am correct. I can be incorrect about all this. I'm just learning about this myself, okay, to try and diminish the problem in my area in Hilltop. And I've even gone now to the west side of Hilltop. I live on the east side, Hilltop Manor Mutual Housing Corporation. I have asked for help, gone to the monthly meetings, asked, say, if you need help even getting your cat fixed, I will try to, let's do a fundraiser in the parking lot, Let's do things so we can help those who need their animals fixed to get them fixed. Not one person has offered to help, trap, neuter, and return. Not one person has asked for money. And as far as I know, there's only 3 residents out of a 400-unit area, even on just my east side. And 1 person on the west side, after going to several things over there to try and get them involved. We're not having much luck getting people into the mood of getting rid of this problem, is what I'm trying to tell you. It's a noble attempt, this ordinance, except that there are no specifics. You feed it, you own it initiative is not being enforced. So there's no way this is going to be enforced at all. The city's not having money for it. It will not be enforced. I hate to be the Debbie Downer, excuse me, but I know we have more cats than I even know about. There are new ones every other day coming around to get food. And while I like cats, I will never get another cat while I'm in this neighborhood, because I don't want to get him sick from these other cats. These other cats are nuisances, and we cannot keep them away from our neighbors who don't want them in the area, as long as people keep feeding them, and they will keep feeding them. I'm sorry, but I just ask you to vote no on this ordinance. It's not specific, it does not give any guidelines, it does not give anybody any responsibility to uphold or enforce it. And I think that's a darn shame. So, thank you for listening to me, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming from District 3.
Thank you for having me.
Next speaker.
name's Eric Miller. You all know I'm an engineer, 952 Faulkner. So a couple of points. All the issues you hear today are today's issues, right? All the cats in the neighborhoods and all the people with nuisance issues. It's all what we are dealing with today. So if you want more of the same, let's just keep on going. You'll still have all these stories about 40 cats and breaking into houses. So what TNR is making a change, doing something different. So the cats roaming the neighborhoods and that reflect these policies, these cats are a result of irresponsible owners who don't spay and neuter their pets. These pets get abandoned and then they subsequently breed. And so these cats are abandoned animals, or they are generations bred from abandoned animals. So this problem was created by us, by cat owners, right? Community caretakers didn't abandon the cats. They're taking care of abandoned cats. They're trying to stop the plight of these generations. So we talked a little bit about data. One of the previous meetings, we had a biologist come in and talk. And he said that estimating cat population in the U.S. is between 148 and 188 million. If you ratio that with Wichita's population, that means we have approximately 105,000 feral cats in the city. In order to control the population, he said that 70% of the females need to be spayed, assuming 10% of those are feral, and 50% of the cats are female. That equates to about, his numbers, about 3,600 cats, females, need to be spayed in a given year. All right? So something that you can look at is what Stephanie gave, is the current trends on euthanasia and TNR. If you look at the trend, you can see that the TNR is going up, the red, and the spay and neuter, or the euthanasia, is going down in the blue. All right, this is data from the Animal Advisory and data from one of the groups that's volunteering and doing the TNR. So there is evidence that we have less euthanasia in this city, and we are doing more TNR. So the goal is to get this number, which is currently estimated at about 1,100 this year, up to that 3,600, so that we can get to the point where we might have the control that this biologist has estimated. So we're asking to legitimize TNR. We want to increase the available funding from private groups. We're not asking for state money, so that we can try and meet this goal. Something that really struck me is everyone's talking about euthanasia, and the study, the survey that was done, the 67%, I think it was, said that they were against euthanasia as a tool for,
It was 48.
as a tool to control populations. So that was really what started this, against euthanasia. How do we find another way to control the population? Other cities have had success doing this. So towards the ordinance, I know one thing that I learned as an engineer is you have to have data to resolve a problem. Right now, the data isn't there. We don't have the data. So putting something in place and being able to somehow measure the TNRs and the effectiveness it has is going to give us some data, so that maybe this isn't the solution, but maybe further down the line there might be a solution. We talk about nuisances. Right now there's existing ordinances that take care of nuisances. Okay, there's existing ordinances. If you have 40 cats in your neighbor, you can call right now and you can have it taken care of. Okay? The ordinances are there. They're there. The city needs to mandate spay and neuter for all dogs and cats. Okay, that should be a requirement. If somebody wants to breed, they should get the license to be breeders. Okay, I think that's one thing that this ordinance doesn't address, but needs to happen. So I think I'll have a couple more seconds here left. I want to do something. I feel like we're in this no-win situation where we're just going to keep going and doing the same old thing. I think there needs to be some changes. This may not be the thing that's going to do it, but we have to do something, because doing the same thing isn't gonna help us.
Thank you.
Just
Perfect
one-
timing.
One comment to the gentleman. I would love to find middle ground for both parties. I don't think the major issue is whether you spay or neuter or whether you euthanize. I don't wanna see any animal harm for that matter. I think the issue is there's no way to place responsibility on someone to, even after you've sprayed and neutered, to take care of it. Just because I feed a cat don't mean I'm taking care of it. There's much more to taking care of a cat than just throwing it some bread. And so, what I'm hearing, which is why we come here, to hear both sides, to hear, everything, all of the information presented. I don't hear there's a, cause I've heard the young lady here say, I can't make someone take care of or assume the responsibility. Even if they say, hey, I'm in this database, I want this colony of cats, you still can't make them. Keep them inside their yard, keep them inside their territory, keep them inside their domain, and not affect the other people in that neighborhood. And so, I think that's one of the major issues that I hear shouted from opposition, not necessarily whether you're spaying or neutering or whether you're euthanizing. What I hear is there is no definite game plan to when you put them back into society, if you will, for lack of a better term. And I think that's where you're running into a problem, because there's no clear-cut ordinance on how you're going to effectively do that. And so, good luck. But that's, I'm just saying to both of you, if you're going to present to a group or any other body or a city council or anybody, that's gonna be the answer that's gonna be the question you have to answer. It's how do you get that middle ground? That's the problem you're gonna run into.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I'll be real quick. My name is John Reddick, and I live at 1510 East 9th Street. I have a colony of cats living across the street. They've scratched my car, they dig up my trash, they crap in my church yard and sit there and smile at you. I've trapped them. I've called the Humane Society. Last time I checked, they had 2 officers, and if they got cut, they're probably down to 1, and 2 wasn't cutting it. I called them, and they said they don't do cats, so I bought my own trap and started trapping them. I filled out so many papers at the Humane Society, they probably know me. I gotta put a picture on the wall for VIP customer. But it's just crazy, and I don't see, the people don't even feed the cats that have all these cats, because they're everywhere in the neighborhood, and it is a nuisance, and, something needs to be done. I think we need to have responsible pet owners. I got 2 dogs myself, they're both spaded, and, that's because I didn't want no puppies running around my yard, so, I think we need to go to the owners and address them. And if you need to go there, the address is 1421 East 9th Street, it's right on the corner.
So I have a question for you though. So with that, you said that right now we're not enforcing. Would you recommend this as a starting point or no?
As far as TNR?
Yeah.
No, not really, because I don't want a bunch of cats in my yard anyway. And if they're outside, if it's a colony, they're outside. Cats shouldn't be outside anyway, because they're out killing birds and killing rabbits in our neighborhood. And just, I bought a brand new car and I had these scratches all across the top of it. I said, how the heck did they get there? And then the next time, it rained a little bit, so I seen cat tracks all up and down it, and it's causing problems for me. And I just don't care for cats, period. I used to have a cat, but I don't have a problem with anybody that has cats, that's their deal. But I take care of my animals, so I think we ought to address the people that's got 30 or 40 cats.
Yeah.
And take care of that problem, because they don't feed them, because they're out running around the neighborhood.
You had a question there.
So I agree that, we definitely need to be targeting, if you will, like the people who own these colonies, the people responsible for feeding them, that type of thing. And I guess my question is is removing TNR from that process, like eliminating that option? You know, can we not have TNR while also implementing some sort of consequences for the people who are not being responsible pet owners? Because I don't know if not having TNR.
So there are consequences for unresponsible pet owners, like abandonment, things like that. So there are consequences currently. So we do charge people.
Okay, so my thing is that everyone is saying that those consequences may exist, but they're not being enforced. So I'm saying, what can we do to ensure that they're being enforced? And that happening, does that work against TNR in some way? Because I want to make sure, like, if TNR works, I mean, we're seeing that euthanasia is going down, which, you know, yay, that's great. But not having TNR, is that gonna take any cats away from your situation? So I don't know if you'll be at a benefit with it not being there, but I wanna make sure that these people are also being held responsible. Yes, the consequence may exist, but I'm hearing that it's not being.
Well, I called animal control, they said they don't mess with cats. So I start trapping
Right.
myself.
Right, and that's, like, that's not okay.
And I take another neighbor to the city hall next.
Yep.
Yes.
Can I answer a couple things here? A couple things that are, that you need to.
We're still in the public session, y'all.
Just write them down and then.
I've been writing them down.
Any other questions?
My name is Ellen Corner, and you have my address on file. I'm one of the three on the advisory board that voted against this ordinance. The reason we three, Dr. Teresa Burks, a veterinarian, Ray Hall from District 4, and myself, voted against passing this ordinance, is that it was incomplete. It did not put in a lot of the things that needed to be put in order to make it a workable ordinance where citizens would be protected against people who had this love and desire to take care of cats no matter what. Now, I'd like to mention something. I have a whole bunch of notes. At least we have 5 minutes before, we only have 2. But I'm gonna run. Euthanasia rate does not mean a successful TNR program. Because although they showed on this slide, Stephanie said, our euthanasia rate is dropping. The numbers of cats coming into the shelter is relatively the same over that time period. The only reason euthanasia rates have dropped is because rescues had been rushing in there and saving those cats. Has nothing to do with TNR, period. Another misquote, and I think Bill didn't misunderstand his numbers. It has been estimated by Friends of Feral Felines that we have at least 100,000 stray or feral cats. Not owned cats, stray or feral cats. Research says that you have to have at least 75% of those cats spayed or neutered within a short period of time. That does not equate to 3,000 cats. 75% is about 75,000 cats. Okay, so that was not, I think that was a misunderstanding on both parts. Second, or whatever I meant, we presently have an ordinance that says you feed it, you own it. We also have an ordinance that says you may only have 4 cats. The city of Wichita has been unable to enforce that ordinance. Period. They don't want to, they don't have time. Now, do we fix that by, now you can have 8 cats? And we'll enforce that? No. I'm not against TNR. I'm for a responsible TNR. It has been shown, and research has been done, that says that there's no TNR in a city our size that will work. Because we can't get up to 75,000 cats in a year to be spayed and neutered. I also run Spay Neuter Kansas. We do spay and neuter owned cats. And we're actually starting to do feral cats to try and help out in the situation. But we find that people don't want to bother bringing their cats to us. We have people that, we do low-cost spay neuters for low-income households, excuse me. And we find that they come and they say, we say, why are you here again? How many cats do you have? Well, the people down the street, they keep spaying, they keep, producing kittens and they're here because they come into our neighborhoods and we're trying to help. And these are people that are poor, and they're in poor neighborhoods. I'm hoping that we will look at this in a rational sense, which means we don't just approach it one way. TNR is one way. I'm not saying that it's not gonna help, but it's not the cure. It's not gonna stop the issue. We also need to address owned cats. And I have asked the advisory board to do so. I have not gotten any real good feel about whether they think so too. I think that we should have a complete cat ordinance that will say, A, if it's a truly feral cat and it's not causing a problem, and we have the ability to limit the numbers of cats that those people feed, and limit the numbers of cats colonies in a neighborhood, then we should try the TNR program, okay? And then we also need to take a lot of the people that are feeding these cats, they're not feral, they're tame. And they should not be out there on the streets. And research has said that it's a three-pronged approach. One, TNR the feral cats. Two, get the cats that are not feral off the streets, into homes, off the streets. And three, is it almost time? Oh dear. And three, mandatory spay or neuter. Now then, let's see, I've got just a few minutes. The survey that was presented had nothing to do with TNR cats. It was simply a survey put out by Robin Bradley to see what we should be talking about, the advisory board should be talking about. It only represented 0.1%.
Thank you.
Richard Ruth, Grandview Heights. Friends of Feral website. We do not remove cats or relocate them. Okay. First of all, when I came to see you in November, the very first words out of my mouth were, we have to recognize that human welfare and animal welfare are inextricably bound together. We cannot deal with one without dealing without the other, right? They have to be thought of together. This is a cat first TNR proposal, okay, and it's gonna fail, and they have failed in doing anything about the population because they approach it from a cat first. They wait around for people to call. I went to Keystone and I saw where 14 or so cats were returned to someone at Keystone who did not have the permission on their lease to have them. Those people left, those cats were abandoned, and now they live underneath, they're all over the place, and it's a mess. To say that they're not a nuisance is really questionable. It's maybe not a nuisance to someone in District 5 who doesn't have that kind of problem, but it certainly is to the people in Keystone. And when District 3 Community Services rep called up and asked Friends of Feral about what they're gonna do about these cats, they said, we're not gonna do anything about them because they've been spayed and neutered and they no longer have any nuisance behaviors. So they have unvaccinated kids running around an open place with little kids playing around outside with their puppies and whatnot, and it's not a nuisance to them. They don't think about the people. You gotta put the people first. You have to go out and meet the people and talk to the people. What are your needs? What are your concerns? Do you have cats? Are they spayed and neutered? Let's get you a low-cost spay neuter. Are there people in your neighborhood that would be willing to do this caretaker stuff? But you gotta meet the people first. You can't wait for a call. The numbers that Ms. McCurdy give about the annual numbers being spayed and neutered, these guys work 30 miles around Wichita. Those aren't all numbers from within Wichita. The only reason why this ordinance is here is because they're running out of money. That's it. It's all about the money. Petco and PetSmart have suspended their funding of these places unless there's an ordinance. So they gotta have the ordinance. It's gotta be about it. It's not about the people, it's about them continuing to do their work very ineffectively. We need oversight, accountability, and transparency in these operations. They have fought tooth and nail to prevent that from getting into this proposal. That's why this proposal needs to be rejected. They cannot be trusted with keeping their own data. That's why we need to have a data model imposed upon them and collection and storage of that data and make it immutable so that they can't get in and change it. So that we can know without any shadow of a doubt that things are working. When you call up and say, I want these cats gone, they say, we can't help you. That's what happened to Ken across the street from Keystone. They wouldn't help him because he didn't want them. If you don't want the cats in your property, you're SOL. Wichita Animal Shelter is washing their hands. I asked Sigmund, are you gonna give us cat reports every month? He said, no, it won't be relevant anymore because no cats will be going into the shelter. They won't be doing anything with cats. We're completely dependent upon a single species special interest group for taking care of cats, not people, cats. And that's what we talk about when we talk about an emotional activist. That's their interest. Cats, putting them on the streets, keeping them on the streets. You have to start with people. This ordinance does nothing for resolving the community problem that cats are. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more speakers? So about how many more speakers do we have?
You know I gotta be the last.
My name's Tom Ewert. My address is 5820 North Legion. Until recently, I was the president of Wichita Audubon Society. Wichita Audubon has taken a position against this draft. We feel it's a bad ordinance. We feel that it's not, there's many problems with it. There are numerous reasons why we should oppose this ordinance and TNR as a practice. Feral cats can spread disease to humans, to our companion animals, and to wildlife that's in our city. These cats disrupt our communities, as we've heard. The feeders that you have heard or will hear from tonight are not thinking about their neighbors, they're only thinking about the cats. Feral cats kill wildlife. They kill the songbirds like robins and wrens in my backyard. They also kill frogs, toads, snakes, lizards, other wildlife that we have in our parks. Feral cats use your garden as a toilet box because these folks won't keep or can't keep their cats confined to their own yards. TNR cannot solve the cat population problem in a city the size of Wichita. It may work in someone's backyard, it may work in a colony, but a feral cat can live for 10 years. So we're talking about attrition over a 10-year period. And during that time, more cats are brought in because a neighbor brings in an unspayed cat. Cat wanders around. I have a friend that has one outdoor cat. Every time she feeds it, there's 6 or 8 other cats that show up in her backyard. The same thing happens when you've got 8 cats in a colony. Well, every other outdoor cat in that neighborhood and every raccoon in that neighborhood knows when and where they are being fed. These folks mean well. They just want to save the kitties, but this is not the answer. The proposed ordinance changes the law so there's no liability for the people who are doing the feeding. The ordinance changes feral cats into community cats, which really means that the city of Wichita will be responsible if a child gets scratched, a companion animal gets rabies, or a garden is ruined. The community doesn't get a choice in this. We need an ordinance that confines cats indoors or inside an enclosure, the same as we have with dogs and other pets. We need to protect our parks and wildlife areas in the city. We need an education program to stop folks from dumping unwanted pets and to keep their pets indoors. We need an animal services department which treats cat-related nuisance calls as serious as they treat loose dog calls. And we need more aggressive adoption programs to rehome the cats which are not truly wild, which can be adopted or, as they said, re-socialized. And we need to recognize that humane euthanasia is not the problem, as has been stated, but it is part of the solution. Tulsa has a leash law for all companion animals. Dodge City has a law which requires all pets to be confined to their backyards or their indoors. Many other cities have ordinances which treat cats and dogs the same with mandatory license, microchipping, and spay or neuter. As mentioned earlier, this draft has already been brought up at 5 other DABs. 4 of them voted not to recommend the ordinance. We ask you to do the same thing tonight. And one more thing, no matter how this comes out, I would ask that you require Animal Advisory Board to include Wichita Audubon and other concerned citizens into the committee rewrite of this ordinance if that happens. Otherwise, they will come up with another one-sided proposal.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Watch that cord right there.
I'm Janice Rich, 619 Greenwood, and I look after a group of feral cats at my house, and they've never been any kind of problem. I'm not sure what kind of problems they would cause. I kind of like seeing them around. I feed them and water them every morning, and then I take up the food so I don't get raccoons or possums. I garden every single day. I'm a master gardener. I've never had any issue with that either. I guess my main concern with the cats has been kittens. I hate seeing these little kittens born in the wild like that, and I've already taken in some and they live in my house, but I wanted to get them fixed. Last fall, Friends of Felines helped me do TNR on 8 cats. Cheryl brought out the traps on a Friday night, and then Deb came the next morning, and they're a well-oiled machine. They know what they're doing, and I helped a little bit. Deb did it. I learned all these little tricks. We had 8 cats trapped within an hour and a half, and I felt really good about that. They came back 2 days later, and I got to let them loose, and that was the really fun part. It cost me $60 a cat, but I know they help with some people, low-income people. They do fundraisers and stuff, and sometimes they help people with those costs, but I guess I felt like I was able to afford it a little more than some of these people, so I decided to take the responsibility and just pay for it. And since then, I did one more on my own. So anyway, the point is, I don't know about all these statistics and everything, but it worked in my house. There has not been one single kitten. So that's it.
Thank you.
I've got a quick question for her. Has your colony grown since you had the TNR?
No, not at all. No.
I think the one thing I would
He asked, has the colony grown since she started doing TNR?
No, it's stayed the same. I haven't seen any new cats. It's pretty much stayed the same, no kittens.
I think the one thing I would say to you is, you are responsible. There's no way to guarantee everyone else is gonna be as responsible as you. There's no way to guarantee that everyone else has the financial means to take care of the rest of the cats.
Well,
So,
there are revenues for that, like the low-cost spay and neuter clinic, and the Kansas Humane Society has a free spay and neuter clinic coming up for cats. I think it's August 24th. I saw it on Facebook. They're taking the first 50 cats that you take there, they get in. It's first come, first served.
but here's what I'm trying to say to you. It's not personal because you're responsible. There can be all types of programs, but that doesn't guarantee or ensure that someone is going to take advantage of that. And so that's all I'm saying to you is you're one person that does what you're supposed to do when you're granted your cats back in your home. What about 70,000 or 75 or 80 or 100 that doesn't? You see what I'm saying? And so,
Well, it is some work to track these wild
absolutely,
cats.
and so that's is all I would say to you, to your comment about not understanding what types of issues, problems is being voiced.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next speaker.
veterinarian at the Cat Hospital of Wichita. I've been practicing there for 25 years. I'd like to first of all point out, and I don't want to pick on you because I don't know you, but I'd like to just illustrate that what this gentleman here was describing is what's called the vacuum effect. When you take cats out of a colony and remove them and euthanize them, more cats just move right in. That's called the vacuum effect. What we're trying to get past the TNR is getting these cats neutered so that they will go back to their territory and defend that territory. They won't allow other cats to move in. They will defend that territory and not let other cats move into that territory. So what he's experiencing is other cats are going to move into that territory because there's resources there. There's something there, either cat food out there, birds, rabbits, as he's saying, that are allowing those cats to feed. That's why he's having a continual problem. So that, I just wanted to point that out. But these caregivers, they're not community activists. They're not emotional community activists. These are people that see a need, like this lady over here. There's cats in her neighborhood. She didn't take this on because she wanted to. She saw a need. I'm assuming, I don't know this person, but I work with cats all the time, and I work with these people all the time. They see a need. It has to be done. Most of my clients, they will take care of these cats on their own. They don't contact Friends of Feline. They don't contact the Humane Society. They pay for this out of their own pocket. And they will feed and care for these animals on their own. They do this to try to prevent them from becoming the nuisance that this gentleman and Mr. Thompson is having in his neighborhood, where these animals are killing birds, scratching their cars, digging in their gardens. But I would like to point out that these animals are wild, not unlike raccoons, not unlike squirrels, not unlike possums. They will get in your yard. They will get in your garden. They will defecate in your yard, just like these other animals will. And they're part of nature and they're part of wildlife. And I think we need to accept that. However, these caregivers feed them to try to keep them from becoming a nuisance, getting in your garbage, climbing on your cars, getting into your cat's food. They're trying to keep them contained so that they don't become a community nuisance. This ordinance that we're trying to ask you to pass this evening is already in effect in several cities, a similar ordinance. St. Louis, Denver, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, San Francisco, and many, many other cities. And it's been shown to work. We're not asking that it's the only thing that we do. We're asking that it's in addition to other things, as you suggested. We know that spaying 75% of the feral cat population is the goal. And we can't go out tomorrow and spay and neuter 75% of the 105,000 cats that are out there. But we've got to start somewhere. And sitting on our hands and doing nothing is not getting anything done. We've got to do something, and we have to work together. By spaying and neutering these animals, we're at least reducing the population. And it starts, as somebody mentioned, with irresponsible pet owners years ago that allowed these cats to breed in the first place, that caused all these cats to become feral in the first place. But now it's our responsibility as a community to take care of it. And it starts with getting them spayed and neutered so we don't have another generation of feral cats coming on. Because each one of these female cats is capable of producing anywhere from 4 to 8 cats a year. Or I'm sorry, a season, and that's twice a year. And then next year, those kittens will be able to reproduce that many as well. That's all I have. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Can I have a question?
No, public speakers, just keep it in mind, maybe you can ask the DAB after. Next speaker, please.
Charlotte Naskinen, I live in District 6, Riverside. I am the current president of Friends of Feral Felines. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're all volunteers, nobody's paid. We have been operating off of just our own funding and whatnot without any grant money for the last 2 years, just fine. We're good. We're still paying for quite a few of the caregivers that contact us for help. We still provide them services free of charge. We get a lot of requests. A lot of the elderly, usually, a lot of the low income. So we have a small group of volunteers. We all go out. We don't have to sit around and wait for calls to come in. We've got a 2-month backlog. We have people, we tell them to go onto our website and fill out the application for assistance there. That puts them into our database that we have. Then that goes to the caregiver support person. She contacts them, verifies the information, that it's all correct. And then that goes to the TNR coordinator. Coordinator sets up the schedule for trapping and then the schedule for surgery, go out, take care of that. The cats go back. We try not to remove and relocate ever. Sometimes that does have to happen. There are very few cases that does happen, but we try not to. The cats are much better and less stress if they go back to where they came from. And usually everybody that does contact us, they are responsible caregivers. These are people that want help. They need the assistance. They don't want any more kittens. They're tired of it. They're done with it. They don't want to see them dying or getting sick or getting run over. So they contact us for assistance. And they're already providing food, water, shelter. Some of them go way above and beyond. Janice, she does a great job taking care of her crew. We usually do about what we call a big TNR weekend, twice a month. We do about 50 each time. We're currently working with Kansas State University vet medicine program. So it's experience for the students, and that's at no cost to anybody. We do charge like $10 per cat so that we can feed the crew. That's about all it covers, is food for the kids. And that's been going great. They enjoy the program. The kids are getting more surgeries under their belt, and this is working for both teams. Now, I know not everybody wants cats in their yard. There are things out there called deterrents. If you Google deterrents, you can find anywhere from simple cat and dog be gone you can get at Walmart. There's high-tech stuff. You can get motion sensor water sprinklers that will go off when a cat comes across. Gives them a squirt. They'll learn not to go there anymore. Stephanie, like somebody mentioned that the definition between community cat and feral isn't there, but Stephanie described that right off the beginning. Feral cat is one that has not been through the program. Community cat is one that has been through the program. Now, we don't really prefer this ordinance either, where there's too many restrictions on it. You're not gonna get a buy-in from the community to do this at all. So it's gonna keep going. Like you said, there has to be a middle ground. So somewhere, there's something that's workable for all sides. This does work on an individual basis, like Janice. And we've helped hundreds of people. I've been doing this myself since 2010. And the group was started by the Sedgwick Police Chief, Ray Huff, back in 2005, is when it was started. And it was small back then. They concentrate mostly on Sedgwick, Kansas. They got bigger and bigger. They came to Wichita, and when we got K-State on board in 2016, we're getting like 900. We're at 700 cats right now, so we'll be well at 1,100 for the year. I'm good. Any questions?
Yes, can you clarify, did you say the students are all from K-State?
Yes.
With the
Yeah.
surgeries?
Yeah, Kansas State University Shelter Medicine Program is the one that provides it. And the Kansas Humane Society does both.
Awesome. Any questions from the DAB? All right, thank you.
My name is Marilyn Overton. I'm from District 1. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't like cats. I'm allergic to cats. And what this ordinance doing, it's putting cats before me. I started being a neighborhood association, get involved because of the cats. I had a lady that was feeding cats. I had over 40 or 50 cats taking over my whole neighborhood. And there is an ordinance But what has happened here, this ordinance, what they're trying to do, the city has a responsibility to enforce these laws that have been written. They're written. And what they're doing is I'm glad to see the neuter having, what they're doing now, let them keep doing it. But this does not take it away from the city, okay? We have to understand that what they're doing is not even, they're even, this money will be coming from grant money. We don't know how long that's gonna last. Do you know how, when you have kittens, you know how long it takes for them to have another kitten? Think about that. What is it, 3 months? 3 months? Is no way. I hate to say euthanize them, but you know what? We have an infestation in the city. Now, the city needs to realize, in my neighborhood and all of these other neighborhoods, we have homes that are sitting with cats in them, and they can't get to those cats. We've got to start making the city responsible for our residents in our neighborhoods to take care of not having these cats coming in. So don't throw it back to somebody, and they need to start putting this in the budget, because if not, it's gonna get out of hand. But I'm just saying, what they're doing right now, it's great. But don't come up and say, this is all, no. We pay our taxes. I'm allergic to them, I don't want them, and you can't keep a cat and feed them in your yard without them coming into my yard, okay? So I'm asking you to vote no for this and start making the city responsible for what they're supposed to do. Thank you.
Can you clarify, when you said we got vacant homes that cats are sitting in?
Yes.
Is that what you meant was
Yes,
vacant homes?
vacant,
Okay.
we have too many vacant homes. The city needs to start taking care of these homes where these cats are living. They're not going into the properties and seeing what's going on. I live in the neighborhood, I see. So stop throwing it back on the people that are doing something, and I'm glad they're doing it. But no, they can't do nothing for what we have now, the infestation we have. Thank you.
Like the infestation of that is very laughing.
Yes.
One down, million to go.
I know.
Hi, thanks for sticking with me. I teach and went back to school today, and I'm exhausted. So I appreciate you guys for doing this. All right, like I said, I teach, I also trap, name's Deb Shevlin, I'm District 6, Riverside. I teach and I also trap for those of you I learned to trap by myself because when my daughter moved to her house, it was very clear the neighbors were feeding next door and nobody was fixing. We heard kittens under her deck. There was a very pregnant cat that hung out on her front porch quite frequently, and there were kittens all over the place. And that was not acceptable to me. So I learned to trap. I bought a really crappy trap, and then I bought better traps. And I watched YouTube videos, and I figured out what I needed to do. And I hauled cats in one at a time to KHS and had them fixed on my daughter. I have, just at her place, spayed and neutered 17 cats. No, they did not all stick around, but they left fixed. I know some friends are feeding a couple of those. I know one was hit by a car. 2 of them have moved inside with her. So it works. We've had 2 years kitten-free, and I'm thrilled. I love kittens, but I don't want to see dying kittens. I don't want to see kittens in the street. I don't want to find any more kittens in the shed. I think it should be really hard to find a kitten, and right now it's not. Like I said, the neighbors were fixing. I don't fault them. They saw a need as well, just like I saw the need to trap and fix. They saw starving animals. I do not understand how you can have animal cruelty laws and then you can find fault with somebody for feeding an animal. That makes absolutely no sense that the 2 things can coexist. No sense at all. In trapping for friends of felines, I have experienced overwhelming gratitude from the people I trap for. They are thrilled to stop the animal production in their area. They are elated that there's something that exists because they, for most of them, they can't go out and pick up this animal and put it in a carrier and take it to the vet. That is not possible. They need someone who knows how to trap, how to handle it safely, and they need to know it's going to come back to them. And that's what we do. And it's awesome. And the animal changes. And people are going to feed. It's humane to feed, like you said. spay and neuter feral cats. Okay. Finally, or not maybe finally, but there is no feral cat store. I don't even know what that would look like. Maybe you'd see a tail sticking out or an ear because feral cats hide. There are no stores. So the feral cats are gonna be in the neighborhood. They're there. I went over to a friend's house today. There was a kitten out front she didn't know about. They're there. They're all over the place. We are talking about somebody who has gone in and done the right thing because they see a problem and they know these cats need to be taken care of and they want to fix it. It's not bringing more cats into the neighborhood. They're already there. Open your eyes and look. Look behind the bushes. Start counting. They're there. I'm sorry. We just want to reduce that population. We don't want the kittens. We want the population to go down. And really, as far as caregivers, you are regulating people who have already stepped up and done above and beyond for cats. I'd like to know, who is responsible for the cats right now? If a cat is walking around and scratches somebody, who is responsible for that cat? Who do you hold accountable? You've asked that many times. Are you gonna, feral cat, people who feed feral cats should be responsible. Right now, who is responsible for that cat? Because it's not, even if it's not being fed, who is responsible for it? Do you have an answer to that? Because I don't think you do. You can say the city's supposed to be trapping them, but good grief, there's way too many for the city to trap. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not using my traps to trap cats to put them down. I'm not spending my time trapping cats to put them down. I'm spending my time to make a difference in this world.
How many cats do you have?
Me?
Hmm?
Oh, 4.
Are they all inside?
I have an enclosure.
Okay. Does every homeowner have an enclosure?
No.
That's the problem.
And I would not disagree
our
with you. But I think that the problem is the people who dump their cats and don't spay and neuter. I would love to see spay and neuter. The city ought to have a big campaign on that. We ought to be having volunteers that drive to people's houses and say, hey, I noticed your cat's not spayed. Let me pick it up and take it in for you. That KHS day that's free for the spay and neuter, you're gonna have people who won't do it because they won't drive to do it. There's gotta be a way to do a massive spay and neuter so that we don't have so many cats reproducing.
What's that way though?
I would say you get volunteers to drive out there and get people's cats. I would say you get a little more aggressive with people. I'm not really nice on my Facebook page
So let me say this to you. One of my first questions was asking to describe what the process looks like. Your process is to now wait for somebody to call you.
Now we advertise and they call. You wanna know what the whole process looks like?
I'm just saying to you, the reason why we're here is to gather information from every side. I don't come here with a personal agenda of who I'm going to vote in favor of or not vote in favor of. I'm just saying the evidence on the table. I've asked what the process looks like. The process now, what I've heard is we wait for someone to call us. So all of these ideas that we're throwing out is good. Well, we need to have somebody go out and do a massive collect. That's all good and dandy. But that's not policy. That's not an ordinance. That's what we're seeing on TV nowadays. We're just throwing stuff out the sky, but that's not an ordinance. That's not, an ordinance is on paper of what you're going, one second, what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And that thing that you say you're going to do, how does that impact other people? So it's not, as you've heard, it's not just about the cats, but how does that impact other people?
Well, if I was your neighbor and I was feeding cats and I spayed and neutered them, that number would go down. And that would be my goal. Those cats I didn't bring there, they were already there in our 2 yards.
So let me ask you, and I'm in closing, how do you think all these cats come in?
Because people don't spay and neuter their cats. And they leave them and they abandon them when they leave. They have kittens, they can have up to kittens 3 times a year. Female kittens can have kittens by the time they reach 4 months old. Those kittens are born in the wild, they don't have any socialization. And so they become feral cats, they become hidden in the background. So TNR is to get those feral cats, but there's also another part of this. You gotta get to the people who are leaving the cats and people who aren't spaying and neutering them in the first place. And I'm not throwing that out there to be an ordinance, I'm That's what we have to do, that's the solution.
Respect.
All right, anything else from the DAB? All right, are there any other speakers? Going once, twice. We'll bring conversation back to the DAB. I know you have some questions you wrote down. Would you like to respond to those?
I'm starting to get hangry, so bear with me. I won't use any more curse words today. Someone said that we did not ask the community at large. We had 7+ meetings about this. We published it on the city website for many months. We spent a lot of time listening to public comment, as you all have. There's a difference between the Wichita Animal Shelter and the Kansas Humane Society. They share a campus. They are two different entities. Wichita Animal Services run by the city of Wichita. The Kansas Humane Society is privately funded. If you call the Kansas Humane Society and tell me you have a cat problem, they're gonna tell you either to bring in the cat to Wichita Animal Services, or they're gonna tell you to call an organization that can help you. They don't have the manpower to go out and help. Wichita Animal Services is the one that does field services. The house at 1421 East 9th Street, I will make sure that call gets escalated tomorrow. Caregivers don't feed 24 hours a day or water. Caregivers feed at specific times every single day. That's what they're supposed to do. One of our board members said the ordinance is incomplete. This was after 7 meetings of all of the board members being in place. This was what was passed at the Wichita Animal Services Advisory Board. You asked, sir, about someone waiting. We just sit and wait for someone to call. As Cheryl was Friends of Feral Feline said, there's approximately 2-month waiting list. I wouldn't say that we're just waiting for people to call. We're actively taking care of a problem as it comes in. An own cat ordinance that's advisory board member brought up tonight. It has been on the last 2 agendas. The first one was the presentation about an own cat ordinance. The second one, no other information was brought to the table and no recommendation by this board member was made. The City of Wichita survey was done in 2016. It was published by the city. It was on the city website. It was also published on social media and District Advisory Board newsletters. It was said that there's a potential that these organizations are running out of money. I personally volunteer with these organizations. I sit on one of the boards. I can assure you that the money is there to continuing spay and neutering animals. I would not ever qualify myself as an emotional activist. I don't own a cat. I'm deathly allergic to cats. But the one thing that I don't want to see our euthanasia rate go up. We did include everyone that came to the meetings versus what was said tonight. Everyone was given a chance to speak, every single meeting. We had a lot of long meetings, and we were there to listen to every single person that came. The last thing I'll say tonight is we have to start somewhere. Doing nothing has got us here. And I just ask you to pass the ordinance so we can continue back with City Council. WPD can make their recommendations as well as the City Council. Thank you.
Any questions from the DAB? I'll cat it out.
Why isn't microchipping included in this?
Microchipping is fairly expensive. And to be able to microchip every
$4
single
a
animal.
chip. It's $4 a chip.
To continue to microchip every animal, if we did, over 600 that have already done today, that adds up very quickly. And that also would show ownership, where, these are community cats, not just an owned cat.
And then another question, so, are we changing the ordinance from 4 cats to 8 cats, is that correct? Somebody said that?
Yes.
Then we're not making any distinction between inside cats or exterior cats, it's just to make an
All
8 cats?
together.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of cats to me.
Hold on.
But,
Keep going, Tom.
I mean, it's kind of tight.
Keep going, Tom. So you change the ordinance from 4 to 8, and the answer was yes, right?
yes,
Yes.
correct. And then again, I think it sounds like we have a funding issue with animal services, and they're,
I couldn't agree with you more.
and then funding was cut again this year, So, I mean, we do have rules and laws and ordinances that need to be enforced, that I think would help our citizens a lot better.
Absolutely.
If people are being listened to by our animal services and they're performing the duties that probably the office probably originally formed for. And, it seems like they're kind of outsourcing some of their duties to you guys at the moment.
I wouldn't say that they're outsourcing.
Not directly.
Right, we kind of volunteer for the job.
Right.
We just wanna be good stewards, I guess, be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem.
That's really all I had.
Any other questions, comments from the DAB?
Is there no happy medium here? Like, is there, like, no? I mean, I'm just really trying to figure out.
I would love for there to be a happy medium. I mean,
Is there a way we can trap and neuter and not release them back to the communities that they've come from? I mean, it just seems like we have two very reasonable requests here that, it seems as if one faction would be extremely unhappy depending on how we vote.
so okay, I have a question, and I'm not saying this like rudely.
No, you're fine.
What are we to do with the cats that are trapped, spay neutered? What do we do with them then?
Do you have people who are willing to take these cats in?
They're wild.
Do you have Kansas Humane Society?
They're wildcats.
Wild.
I'm just trying to do the right thing here. I mean, and to me, the right thing.
I don't disagree, but I mean, my personal feeling is euthanizing every cat that comes in is not the right thing.
So if they're wild, why are we releasing them back to the communities in which they come from? Does this make sense? And I'm sorry, because I'm not trying to be rude.
No,
but
I wanna answer every question that you have.
But if you're telling me that you don't wanna, nobody else will want them because they're wild, why would we put them back in the communities where they've come from if they're wild?
Because they're not wild to that caretaker. A lot of times what you'll find is the caretakers are able to feed them, give them water, be able to take care of them, and if they need any type of medical attention, they're able to trap them and then get them in for medical attention. I'm sure Dr. Jones would be able to tell you how many
Is it
times
because they
she's.
become familiar with that caretaker, so it's kind of like a relationship type of thing? Okay. I'm really trying to understand here. I'm a dog guy. I don't have cats, so I'm trying to.
I'm in the same boat, for real. Like, I am in the same boat.
So I want to lean into the unknown and really try to understand this.
There's so much more to it than what I can give you in this time frame. I mean, I got an education in cats. I don't know anything about cats until recently. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, that's just, they sent me because I was the chair. There are many people that are more educated in this topic than I am.
Last question, what is the rationale behind increasing from 4 to 8? I know that you mentioned it, but what was the rationale behind that?
So there's a lot of colonies that are already, working colonies that they have already been spay neutered and ear tipped and all of that jazz. A lot of those colonies already have 8. Some of them have more. So we're gonna have to bring those other colonies into compliance. That was the rationale.
Okay.
Because what we don't wanna do is go out and say, you can have 4 cats.
And then you split the colony.
And then you alienate all of these people, we want them to come register, and then we don't know where they are.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So my last question for you.
Can I just go home?
So no, seriously, my last question for
Okay.
you is, depending on whatever the vote is, let's just say, for example, we vote no. What are you going to do?
What do you mean, what is the board gonna do?
Let's say we vote no.
The next step is it goes to city council. And, well, it goes to WPD first, and then to city council.
So I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. So if we all vote no, city council votes no, you're going to continue to do the work, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So here's what I'm getting at.
Makes it harder for it to do.
The work you're doing, I wouldn't say it doesn't help, but the work you're doing is not an ordinance. that we're going to, or at least that I'm going to vote for, that substitutes what this, if the city ordinance is not working, we need to change the city ordinance, or we need to make some steps to improve the city ordinance, or to change it. But this, with disregard to other people and how they feel, if you love a, and I've said this before, if you love a cat, that's good. This is not personal. If we remove all the personal from it, just because you're going to take care of a colony doesn't mean I want your cats coming over there. And you don't have the right to tell me, well, there's kits at Walmart you can go buy to keep cats away. You don't get to put the onus of responsibility on me because you love something. And that's the issue right here. And I cannot vote for something that does not take that under consideration for other people. It's not just about the cats. And if we can't find a happy medium, then we can't vote yes on something that we can't find a happy medium on. My recommendation is to reject the motion to reject the TNR ordinance.
Motion to approve.
There
has been a motion and a second to reject. Is there any further discussion?
I have a smidge of additional discussion. I will be voting in favor of your motion. But I would like to go ahead and echo that the fact that we're not actually enforcing the existing laws is not good. I believe that if the current law is actually there and enforced in situations where it needs to be enforced and not in situations where it's actually working well, then great. But there needs to be a remedy that's more than 20 years in the hopeful future for problem situations. And I don't think this is it, to allow for larger communities. The other thing I would actually like the city to go ahead and look into would be that I understand why, with all of the things that we're trying to do, whether or not it be art and all that kind of stuff, but in problem situations, I would like to think in the same way that there are other portions of the city that have significant fine revenue, this could actually be one as well, to go ahead and at least fund an additional person to go and deal with the problem areas that are not being adequately maintained by the TNR, or have people that are not willing to go ahead and address it and wait for that. My 2 cents.
I just have one comment to make. The young lady had stated earlier in her presentation that they have been having people calling with the colonies of cats, colony of cats, that they weren't able to take care of them and get medication for them. And then looking at the ordinance under section 2, under Article 4, where it says a registered community cat caregiver shall provide medical care for cats in accordance with the caregiver's guidelines. So if they can't give care to them, like they are, then you're gonna take them with 8 cats back to the colony and expect them to, give them food and care and shelter and pay for medication for them. That's all I have to say.
So I was just gonna add, so Camila, if somebody has a problem with cat colony, can they call you and get some services or, some help remedying the issue? Camila does all kinds of good stuff.
District 1 Community Service Representative, the email will go directly to Animal Control Services. And we will Google any services that are available on the internet, which some of these organizations represent.
We'd be happy to give you a list that is handed out at Wichita Animal Services.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the current motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
So one opposed?
One opposed. Mr. Heflin. Motion passes to reject the TNR ordinance. All right, moving along. Updates, issues, reports. Let's start with Mr. Holland. You don't have nothing? Anicia?
Go vote tomorrow.
Go vote tomorrow. Tomorrow's election
Time to
day.
go home, but go vote tomorrow.
Let's get it, Jake.
Tadana. Tom. Mr.
Nothing.
Thompson.
I already voted though.
What's up with the sign, stop sign in the middle of the street at Murdoch?
Stop sign in the middle of the street, Murdoch and Yale. Residents over there on that block complained about the stop sign being too far up and people going through the intersection or almost getting into an accident.
We actually don't care.
So staff had responded with that.
Drive safe.
Should we put a barrel around it at least?
I can ask.
Okay, please.
Which one of them?
Okay.
Laptop.
Still on
Cause you know,
updates?
you go
Yes,
around.
we are.
I can't hear it, I'm sorry, what's the
He
update?
asked about the stop sign that's on Murdoch and Yale. It's moved out and the street has been striped.
So what about is it like delayed right now for the construction?
No, a citizen requested help with that and staff, moved it from the curb right of way into the street because it's a really weird big intersection.
You know, I like to run around that curve.
So you not like it where it is, where it was moved to?
Huh?
Is it a problem where it was moved?
Yeah, I almost hit it. I mean, I laid on the brakes but not hit it. So, if you could put a barrel around it so it's a little more than just a stick. I would really appreciate it. Cause somebody's gonna hit it.
Hey, orange.
Yeah, nice big orange barrel. Let's see if you hit it in.
Setting up that whole flag.
Joseph?
Go vote tomorrow.
Tyler, welcome back. Tyler is a married man now, he got to travel. Congratulations.
Oh,
I will make mine quick, so tomorrow is election day. Make sure you go vote. City of Wichita, for the first time, is providing free transit on election day. So anybody who wants to go to the polls and back home instead of just back home, we are providing free transit starting at 6 a.m. when polls open. So go vote, free transit, National Night Out next Tuesday. If your neighborhood hasn't signed up, please make sure they are. We will be touring the district to go to as many as possible. I think last year I hit 13. Didn't get to all of them because there were some ribs at one that were pretty good, so I stayed there. 9th Street dedication. 9th Street is about done, all the artwork and everything, so August 31st. I stole it from Camila, she was probably gonna talk about it. There's a flyer, take that, but we will be doing that on 9th in Minnesota. So we'll have a great celebration, starts at 10, stage, golf carts that go up and down the street. So you can check out everything, the pillars will be painted. And then right afterwards, the Urban League is gonna have a continuation of the celebration. So that will be open to the public and free. Those flyers will get mailed out as well from the city to the surrounding community so they know. If you haven't seen, the East Front Legacy effort has started publicly. So myself and Commissioner O'Donnell will represent both the city and the county on that. All of those meetings will be open to the public. Your input is valuable for the future of the East Front, which is opposite of where the baseball stadium will be. So please engage with that. I told you earlier about the Tech Lab at McAdams. Tomorrow we will be voting on the 17th Street improvements on the north side of McAdams on 17th Street, which would be between Ohio and 135. Some pretty cool stuff. The Jackie Robinson statue is almost done. Somebody posted some pictures on Facebook of kind of the outline of it, so it's gonna be pretty cool. To give you some height ideas, it will be a 8-foot statue. on top of a 2-foot base, so it'll be a really big statue of Jackie Robinson. Tonight's TNR continues to remind me that tomorrow and next Tuesday, we have budget. So if animal services is something that you think should be funded, I will mention that. It was talked about tonight, but definitely let us know either through email or showing up on the budget. Any other priorities you might have. I think that's it for me. Anicia?
Unofficial announcement, this is our last DAB meeting with a teenager on the DAB.
Oh.
I'll be 20 next week, I just wanna put that.
Hey.
We got Angel. He
Yeah.
was
But
here for a little
He's like
bit.
the youth member.
He's the
See, no, I'm in the grown group, so. Say she's gonna be a midget.
No, that's the first.
Such a baby.
Little plug there.
Yep, so I think that
20, wow.
wraps it up for me. Let us know if you are looking at going around to the different neighborhood stuff, if your neighborhood's not doing something. I'll let you know where I'm going and when, and I may or may not tell you about where those ribs are. That's it, we'll entertain a motion.
Withholding resources.
Motion adjourned.
Oh, motion, second,
Bye.
aye,
Nice.
Thompson.